Welcome to Campus Martius in downtown Detroit for the 2024 NFL Draft. My name is William Gregory, joined by Kelin Flynn for WCBN Sports live radio coverage on YouTube of the first round of the NFL Draft. Kelin, it's a pleasure to be here. We had a nice 30-minute pre-draft show at 6 o'clock, and now it's time for the real thing. Well, it might be a little while until the real thing starts. We kind of know what these first three picks are going to be, but very excited to be here in downtown Detroit for the NFL Draft.
Oh, absolutely. And the Bears aren't even quite on the clock yet, but we know that they're going to make them use the full 10 minutes. So we'll get a chance to kind of preview some things that we think may happen, go over some potential trade scenarios we may see in the top 5, top 10,
Yep.
And talk about maybe where we think some of these Michigan prospects will land. J.J. McCarthy, obviously the main one in there, but really excited to be here. Should be a fun night.
Yeah, and before everything begins, I think we should start off with our mock drafts and just a little bit of thought on them. We both have a very similar top 10, almost exactly the same. My draft here, I have Caleb Williams going number 1, Daniels 2, Maye 3. 3 quarterbacks at the top. After that, Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State, then Joe Alt to the Chargers. Those 2 picks have been talked about as potential tradable picks, but Arizona and Los Angeles seem to be comfortable staying and picking unless they get blown away by a trade offer. With Marvin off the board, Malik Neighbors goes to the Giants, then immediately following that, Odunze. Those 3 top wide receivers go fairly close. I have Dallas Turner to Atlanta. That's a consensus pick. Not too wise to bank on consensus picks. An individual on Reddit did some research that said only 4 of the top 10 picks on average over the last 10 NFL drafts end up being correct. And with the 4 picks at the top being consensus, we could see the top 10 get wild. Of course, it is an average number.
There's not always a full 4 consensus at the top. Sometimes it's only 1 or 2.
At 9, Byron Murphy II I have, defensive lineman from Texas. Brock Bowers at 10 of the Jets. J.J. McCarthy, Michigan national champion quarterback, at 11 to Minnesota, and this is another pick that could be traded, but I think the Vikings could be comfortable to just stick and pick with J.J. And Colin, feel free to chime in.
Well, when you talk about sticking and picking, the one team that when you look from 1 through 10, really when you look 4 through 10, because you've got 3 quarterbacks going in the first 3, the Giants are the only other team in there that you think might jump up to get a quarterback. Chargers are set with Justin Herbert. Then you have the Giants at 6, which they paid Daniel Jones recently, but he was not great this last year. Do they make a jump for McCarthy? Tennessee feels happy with Will Levis from last year. Atlanta just brought in Kirk Cousins. Chicago, they have the aforementioned Caleb Williams. The Jets have Aaron Rodgers. So it's either a team like Denver or Las Vegas trading up to jump Minnesota at 11 or New York. But there's really only a handful of teams that are making a play at a quarterback. Denver has been associated with Bo Nix, the Chargers with Michael Penix. So really it seems to be a 2-horse race between the Giants and the Vikings for J.J. McCarthy, with New England seemingly locked in on Drake Maye.
Yeah, the odds on Maye shifted from around -300 about an hour ago to now -1,000. So it's almost a guarantee that the top 3 picks will be those 3 quarterbacks in that order. Denver, I have at 12, picking the next available best defensive player. I mean, you can't see into their board, so it might be somebody else. But I have Laiatu Latu, who's a very technically sound edge rusher from UCLA. 13, J.C. Latham, slotting in at right tackle opposite of Colton Miller for the Las Vegas Raiders. The New Orleans Saints take another offensive lineman, Talisa Fuaga, who fills a needed role for them at right tackle. Quinyon Mitchell to the Indianapolis Colts, another consensus pick from Toledo to Indianapolis. 16, Graham Barton. I really do like that selection. Barton, the Seahawks showed a lot of interest in Barton in the pre-draft process. I think this is a kind of under-the-radar selection. Offensive line is a need for Seattle, but you never know who they're going to pick. You never know who's at the top of their board. I like Graham Barton a lot. Very athletic, but has some hidden power. Held his own against Jared Verse against Florida State this season, and he has the ability to play all 5 positions on the offensive line, maybe excluding left tackle in the NFL, but can certainly do that in a pinch. Marius Mims, a project out of Georgia, long arms, only started 9 games in college due to injuries and backing up some other NFL caliber tackles. Surprise pick to Jacksonville at 17. They are interested in someone like that, and I think Trent Baalke. A lot of people think Jacksonville is going to take a cornerback, but Baalke has never taken a cornerback in the first round. He was the general manager of the San Francisco 49ers during the Jim Harbaugh era, moved to Jacksonville, and he's taken a lot of guys like Mims. He took Walker first overall, Trayvon Walker, the edge rusher. He was very raw, and with Jacksonville not taking a corner, that leaves Cincinnati with Terrion Arnold out of Alabama, who I am in love with. He's just got this twitch. He's so ferocious on the outside. I think Cincinnati really solidifies their defensive backfield. Next up, the LA Rams, needing to solidify the offense for next season, making that surprise run to the playoffs. Matthew Stafford back healthy. I think they're dangerous. And then at 20, Olu Fashanu, the offensive tackle from Penn State, falls all the way down to Pittsburgh. They're happy to take him. And in these mocks that we have, we don't include trades because, I mean, the picks are hard enough to predict by themselves. But any one of these players, if they fall a certain distance, teams could come up to grab them. It's just hard to predict what's going to happen. Nate Wiggins I have to Miami at 21. Tyler Guyton to Philadelphia at 22. Another faller, Jared Verse, to Minnesota at 23. Daniil Hunter replacement. Kingsley Suamataia to Dallas at 24. They need a tackle. Then I have DeJean to Green Bay. Thomas, Robinson, Worthy, Jackson Powers Johnson to Detroit. I really love that pick. Braden Fisk to Baltimore. Love that pick. And Marshawn Nealon to San Francisco. Those 3 straight picks are kind of just guys that I really like, and those teams have shown interest in them enough that I'd like to see it happen. Patrick Paul has been a rising name. He slots in at 32 to the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs as a really long offensive tackle that can slide in for Kansas City to mitigate some guys who have left in free agency. We're watching Eminem announce Jared Goff on the stage of the NFL draft.
Got a couple of Lions coming out there. Aiden Hutchinson in there as well. Commissioner Goodell on the stage. And Calvin Johnson as well. I mean, this is about as A-list as it gets for Detroit and the Lions. As Barry Sanders walks out too. William and I have a lot of similarities, especially at the top of our mock drafts. Our 1 through 8 actually are in complete lockstep. Where we differ begins at 9. I have the Chicago Bears taking Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. And then like William Bowers and McCarthy go 10, 11. Latu, 12 to Denver. And then at 13 is another spot where we differ. I have Byron Murphy II going to Vegas to shore up that defensive line. Then J.C. Latham to fill in at right tackle for the aging Ryan Ramczyk for New Orleans. Xavier Worthy jumps up the board to 15 to the Indianapolis Colts. They get a speedster to pair with Anthony Richardson. I mean, that's a fun combination that'll lead to some long touchdowns. Quinyon Mitchell at 16 to Seattle. Jared Verse, the edge out of Florida State, to Jacksonville to pair with Josh Allen to create some pressure. At 18, I have Fuaga out of Oregon State, the tackle, to Cincinnati. He can play on the interior if needed. A good offensive line piece to keep Joe Burrow upright. Fautanu, like William, I have him going to the Rams. At 20, this is where I have Amarius Mims going off the board to the Steelers. Graham Barton, the interior offensive lineman, to Miami at 21. Fills a need, and he's a great prospect. Terrion Arnold at 22 to Philadelphia. That's a slam dunk pick for the Eagles to get another DB in the building with some youth at that position opposite of Darius Slay. Chop Robinson at 23 to Minnesota if they hold that pick. Tyler Guyton, another offensive lineman, to Dallas. They've shown they're not afraid of some projects there, and it's paid off in the past. Kool-Aid McKinstry at 25 to Green Bay. Nate Wiggins at 26 to Tampa. Corners go back-to-back. And then at 27, Jordan Morgan, the offensive tackle out of Arizona, to Arizona as Chicago is about to be put on the clock by Commissioner Goodell. 28, Brian Thomas Jr. out of Louisiana State to Buffalo. He's a guy that can absolutely fly down the field, gives Josh Allen a new deep threat with Stephon Diggs now in Houston. And then to round it out, the last 4 picks, the teams that made an appearance in their conference championship games. At 29, Detroit got Johnny Newton out of Illinois, Braden Fisk out of Florida State to to Baltimore, along with Marshawn Nealon to San Francisco following that. William and I agree on those 2 picks. And then I have Sui Mataya to Kansas City at 32, the tackle out of BYU. Obviously, once you get out of that first few picks where things are pretty set, as Chicago's been on the clock for 50 seconds now, that's where things really start to get hairy and you can see some weird stuff happen. So excited to get into this one. It might take us a little bit of time to get through these first couple picks, but I think 5 is where we really might see some action start to happen.
Yeah. And I think, it's Arizona maybe not solid at 4. We'll see. Take a look at my top 50. Caleb Williams, number 1 on the overall big board. I think it's pretty easy. I mean, a lot of people have him there. Some people have Drake Maye ahead of him, or even Jaden Daniels. There's still some worries about Caleb Williams as a refined quarterback. He has all the talent in the world. He can make every throw, in structure or out of structure. He has enough mobility. And the size, is an issue to more traditional football guys. That's why Drake Maye to them is a better prospect, maybe. Drake Maye more prototypical, 6'4", 6'5". Caleb Williams closer to 6 foot 6'1". But Bryce Young last year was 5'10". Kyler Murray was 5'10", if that. Both of those guys, probably closer to 5'9", 5'8". They went first overall. It'll be no problem for Williams to go first overall to the Bears. A stat that I heard that the Bears hope Caleb Williams is able to rectify is that the Chicago Bears have never had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards in a single season and never had a quarterback throw for 30 touchdowns in a single season ever. I mean, this is like the second oldest franchise in the NFL. Never have they had that. Closest was Eric Kramer in 1995.
Yeah, and this is supposed to be the savior for the Chicago Bears. I mean, you talk about trading down last year in the draft, allowing the Carolina Panthers to move up to number 1 overall because the Bears clearly were not in love with the top-tier quarterbacks in that class. And while C.J. Stroud would have been a slam-dunk pick, they made the decision to give Justin Fields another year, pick up DJ Moore, a good weapon for him on the outside. Didn't work out. And, well, when the Carolina Panthers finished with the worst record in the league, Chicago got the golden ticket to Caleb Williams. And so they have the best of both worlds now, where they have DJ Moore. They have their new quarterback of the future now in Caleb Williams, able to bring in Keenan Allen over the offseason. And then a pick at 9 where they can potentially bring in another weapon, shore up that offensive line, or get a good piece for the defense. So a real franchise-altering draft for the Chicago Bears. You've got to knock down both of these picks. Caleb Williams is your layup at 1, but if you can nail that pick at 9 as well, that gives the Chicago Bears a real opportunity as a franchise to flip the script.
Well, they did well with Darnell Wright last year, an offensive tackle out of Tennessee. He was a late riser in the process, and the name kind of bubbled up right before the draft. Similar process to Byron Murphy, who is the leading candidate for Chicago at 9 right now. I guess to get into Caleb Williams a bit more, an issue potentially with him also is the connotation that some people have that he is a diva or self-absorbed. Reports came out that he kind of lacks self-awareness similarly to Russell Wilson, and we know where that got him towards the end of his tenure in Seattle and this past season in Denver. But from all the reports on the player side, they see all of that as self-confidence, and they really dig Caleb's kind of mentality of he knows he's better than everybody else, and he's going to do that and prove it on the field. Now, the way he goes about expressing that may rub some people the wrong way. It did, rub me a little bit of the wrong way during the season, but his talent is undeniable. and the Chicago Bears are making the only decision they can make here at number 1. Running 5 minutes off the clock is certainly a formality. They've known that this was their pick since the Carolina Panthers finished at the bottom of the league table.
And I'm sure they absolutely did their due diligence and scouted the rest of this quarterback class
But
diligently.
there's never been another word on like Drake Maye or Jay Daniels. It has been Caleb Williams the entire way. And I mean, this is a process you start not when the season's over, but you start the draft process as soon as the draft's over. You have scouts dedicated in your front office to researching college players all year, and then you have the NFL scouts who scout, free agent signings and things like that. But the Bears have known about Caleb Williams. I mean, really since he started playing at Oklahoma. That's certainly some of the film that has been taken into account. That kind of more than a half a season he started at Oklahoma before transferring to USC following his head coach Lincoln Riley. But I mean, there's not much else to say.
And
he's fantastic.
The pick is officially in for Chicago.
Let's see who it is.
And we'll see how long the NFL makes us wait for this one. But
as soon as the pick's in, that means the Commanders are on the clock. And we know who they're going to take with a kind of a certainty towards I guess a few days ago there was some movement on Drake Maye possibly being the pick there, or even J.J. McCarthy, but that's just been speculation. It's kind of been Jaden Daniels the whole way too. But Daniels is a bit more of a flawed prospect than Williams.
And the Commanders went about this in a weird way. They used all 30 of their visits on the same day for prospects, which is not typical.
It's kind of a waste. I mean,
but there are reports that they had them all go out to Topgolf together. Interesting. They have their own methods. It's funny, you hear about some of these stories come draft time, these different teams and how they go about doing their research and through their pre-draft process. But Chicago's pick is in, and the Commanders are on the clock. Just a matter of seconds before we pan to the commissioner and get the pick. Here it is. And it's official.
Officially to the Bears. Who would have guessed that? There's a little bit of noise here in the workroom. We can show you in a little bit what our situation is. We don't exactly have the most glamorous view, but it's a lot of fun. We'd be watching this draft anyways, and we want to be able to share our thoughts with you guys. Caleb Williams making his way up to the stage.
One of only 13 prospects to make the journey to the Motor City. A part of a trend that has seen first-round prospects less and less comfortable with going to the draft live. Part of this may be that Detroit isn't seen quite as the vacation spot or travel destination that maybe a Nashville or a Las Vegas is.
Well, let's flash this graphic right now. Resurgent Cenervis. Or why is this off center? No. Well, apologies. We'll fix the graphic up in post here. Just burning stuff right now. Anyways, I gotta fix that graphic. Hold on, real quick. But Detroit, I mean, I'll dispute that. We're both from the area, and there's no better city in the United States than Detroit, Michigan. I say that any day of the week. I mean, other cities are cool. Other cities are fun. We've sure been to a lot of them together, but nothing pulls together, the vibe of Detroit, the sentiment that everyone has here, the feeling that this city just generates day in, day out. I'm so happy that we get to experience this right now. This is so cool. I mean, when we got out of the car walking towards, we are on the 4th floor of One Campus Martius, the CompuWare building. I've never seen a buzz around the city like this with so many people, and they're saying that they're expecting upwards of 400,000 people at the draft over this weekend.
My goodness.
Which is nuts. I mean, there's 650,000 people that live in the city of Detroit proper. 5 million in the metro, but still, there's never been something like this as I hustle to get this graphic fixed to support my point. Here we go. Hold on. There we go. Resurgence Ceneribus. That's the second half of Detroit City motto. First half, Speramus Meliora, or Meliora. In English, of course, that's Latin. That's translated to, we hope for better things. It shall arise from the ashes. That's why a lot of people see Detroit as a phoenix arising from the ashes of kind of some dark times over the last 20 to 30 years. But this year, this is just in sports. These 5 logos. The March Madness, Sweet 16, Elite 8. Kelin, you had the opportunity to cover that for WCBN. That was a lot of fun. Obviously, the NFL Draft. The greatest season in Detroit Lions football history, which is crazy, happened this season, going all the way to the NFC Championship game. They pick at 29 tonight, which is the highest first-round selection in franchise history. The Detroit Red Wings exceeded expectations. The end of the season was a bit of a disappointment, but they were 1 point away from the playoffs, which if you asked any Red Wings fan before the season if that were to happen, they'd be happy with it. Things are looking bright for the Red Wings. Didn't include the Tigers or the Pistons. Tigers are 15-10 or 14-11 right now, but they have yet to turn that corner. And the Pistons won 14 games this year. The Lions
we can leave that in the dust.
And then obviously the national champions in football. Detroit in sports, and I think sports are such a huge thing for the culture of the city. You see how many people are out celebrating right now. It's such a huge deal for this city to have their sports teams and their sporting events. I mean, we love culture here in Detroit. Music, sports, it binds us all together.
And the atmosphere, what the vibe was like downtown is unlike anything I've ever seen in downtown Detroit before. People everywhere. Just an awesome sight to see downtown. So busy, so excited. So many people in the area. Such an awesome thing for the city. But, William, let's talk some football. Caleb Williams obviously goes number 1. Give us a little bit about what the Bears can expect from him and him as a player.
I mean, he's going to start day 1. Their previous quarterback one was Tyson Bagent, the Division II rookie who played a few games last year when Justin Fields was hurt. Justin Fields now in Pittsburgh was the 11th overall pick in 21. Or was he 9? I can't remember. He was after J.C. Horn. Early first-round pick, Justin Fields.
I believe it was 11.
11. No longer in Chicago, another kind of first-round pick that failed. Another quarterback that failed in Chicago. You look at their quarterback history, there's not many bright spots, if any. Like Sid Luckman played in the 1940s. He's the franchise's best quarterback ever. Caleb Williams hoping to change that in Chicago. I wouldn't say he's necessarily a winner just yet. USC didn't achieve the heights that everyone thought it would. Had a better season last year, actually, than this season. But he's a heck of a quarterback and can do everything on the field. Now, Washington Commanders pick is in, so we will talk about him for a minute. Well, it's probably going to be Jaden Daniels, so we can get into it a bit. I have a few stats that I wanted to share, actually. So for one, Jaden Daniels. Actually, we'll do this first. Talked about Justin Fields a minute ago. One of the closest comps to Jaden Daniels in terms of pressure to sack rate, which means the amount of times Daniels is pressured and the percentage of the time when he is pressured he is sacked, is nearly 25%, which is the highest of any quarterback since 2017 drafted. Justin Fields is the 4th highest on that list at 23.55%. Just below him is Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson are the only 2 quarterbacks over 20% pressure to sack rate to have successful, big-time careers, I should say. Caleb Williams also up there. Recently drafted first overall pick. But names like Zach Wilson, Desmond Ridder, Daniel Jones, Kenny Pickett,
Justin Fields.
Justin Fields. There are some other names towards the bottom. Justin Herbert is at 18%. Jalen Hurts there as well, but it's not great company to be in with Daniel Jones and Zach Wilson. Jaden Daniels, the official pick for the Commanders at 2. So the board is holding to what Vegas thought it would. Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, the first 2 quarterbacks off the board. Another thing about Jaden Daniels in comparison to other first-round drafted quarterbacks, he is 23 years old, almost 23 and a half. Nix and Penix both at 24 in this class. But the only quarterbacks older than Daniels to go in the first round are Carson Wentz, Joe Burrow, Ryan Tannehill, Kenny Pickett, and Brandon Weeden. Really the only hit you could say is Joe Burrow. Carson Wentz had his moments before he got hurt, but I think the injury wasn't the end of his career. It was his play style. He's almost out of the league at this point. Other names, Christian Ponder, E.J. Manuel, Baker Mayfield there as well, but Jake Locker, Mac Jones, Mitch Trubisky, and Tim Tebow, not great company. And when you combine that pressure to sack rate against his comparables and his age, I mean, the deck is kind of stacked against Jaden Daniels. But, I mean, I got faith in him. He's a good quarterback.
Jaden Daniels' combination of athleticism with accuracy throwing down the field is why he's going number 2 to the Commanders. The Heisman Trophy winner this past season. You have the last 2 Heisman Trophy winners going 1 and 2, the last top 2 quarterbacks in college football. And so the Commanders have a guy that has absolutely a high ceiling as an NFL quarterback if he's able to find a way to utilize those legs and also stay able to throw downfield. And the big question for him is, can he handle the complexities of the NFL defenses? Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator there, he fits that system, but can Jaden Daniels handle the complexity of NFL defenses? That has been the major question for him so far.
Kind of lately, I've watched a bit more film on Daniels, and I started liking him a bit more. I think he has this slight frame, and he takes big hits and sacks at a disproportionate amount. He's more like Justin Fields than Lamar Jackson. I don't think he has the overall athletic upside or the arm talent that Lamar has. He was buoyed by a friendly scheme and 2 NFL receivers in Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Or that's his name, right? Brian Thomas Jr. I just had a lapse for a minute. But I think he showcases an ability to make full field reads, front side to back side. Has that creation ability. There are some short distance accuracy issues. When I was watching film specifically on his wide receivers, Neighbors and Thomas, there were a lot of moments where those guys were just wide open and he missed him. And first round quarterbacks are so hard to judge. So you do have to ask that question, Kellen. Will it translate? We'll just have to see. Going to a franchise in Washington that has the framework right now, and Daniel Snyder sold the team. It's under new ownership with Josh Harris, who also owns the Philadelphia 76ers. But this Washington franchise has been, bitten by a lack of a quarterback for a really long time. Their 3 Super Bowl wins are from 3 different quarterbacks: Doug Williams, Joe Theismann, and Mark Rippon. They haven't really had a true lasting franchise quarterback since, I don't know, Sonny Jurgensen or Joe Theismann was until he got hurt and his leg got cracked in half by Lawrence Taylor.
But they've struggled. These are 2 teams that really have not had, at the top of the draft, that have not had consistent quarterback play for decades. And then you compare that to the team that just turned their pick in, the New England Patriots, who had 20 sunny years of Tom Brady under center in New England. Very, very different situations. But Williams shifting toward the Patriots now. Their pick is now in. Drake Maye, over the last 24 hours or so, really cemented himself as that number 3 pick. There were some discussions about J.J. McCarthy in there, but over the last, 24 hours or so, his odds to go number 3 overall have skyrocketed. These were the top 3 guys the entire step of the way. But let's talk about these situations. Caleb Williams gets to go to a fantastic situation in Chicago with 2 high-end receivers in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Some pieces on the offensive line, some pieces on the defense. DeAndre Swift at running back. Jane Daniels is going to a Washington team that has a lot of questions on the offensive line. A good receiver on the outside in Terry McLaurin.
You have Jahan Dotson as well, I think, who's underrated.
But
Brian Robinson at running back. But, yeah,
some
less
question marks there. Austin Eckler brought in over the offseason should help. And then you get to New England, and who has a lot of question marks. I mean, that is a roster that is, dare I say, devoid of talent almost.
But the thing is, Drake Maye is my number 2 overall prospect. And really, I mean, Caleb Williams, the stuff he already has on tape, that's why he's number 1 to me. But Drake Maye, I think, has the ability to be above Caleb Williams. It's not often the first overall pick really exceeds expectations. Maybe, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, not really meeting it. Trevor Lawrence is not getting there as fast as people thought. We're getting the Patriots selection right now. Drake Maye.
And there it is.
Goes to New England. There was some commotion about J.J. McCarthy or a trade down, but the board stays. And here's the updated draft order. Caleb Williams, Jade Daniels, Drake Maye. And now the draft starts to really get interesting because we don't know if Arizona will trade out of this pick for Marvin Harrison Jr. now that we know for sure that Drake Maye is going to the Patriots. Do the Vikings attempt to jump up, or was Maye the actual guy who they wanted to jump up for? But a bit more on Maye. I just think he can be Justin Herbert or Josh Allen. He's extremely raw, but he has all these tools. I don't think he'll succeed without good coaching. And we don't know what Gerard Mayo, the new Patriots head coach, will be for Drake Maye. Obviously, things didn't turn out great for Mac Jones. A cycle of offensive coordinators that weren't really fit to be offensive coordinators kind of stagnated his career, and he's now in Jacksonville, if I'm correct. Right?
Yep, trade for a 6th-round pick.
Not great return on his investment. I don't think he'll succeed without good coaching. He's got really poor footwork and decision-making in structure sometimes, but there are these flashes where he's rolling outside the pocket or he makes throws that no other quarterback can make, and I think it's all coaching for Drake Maye. He has all of the talent necessary to be the best quarterback in the NFL. I think, he's got more than Mitch Trubisky did when Mitch Trubisky was picked at 2 out of North Carolina.
He just has way more experience than Trubisky
way more
did.
experience. He had 2 seasons. 2022 is what a lot of people thought was a better season from him, and he didn't meet expectations this season, but he had a lot of talent in that true freshman year, redshirt freshman season last season. And he's a redshirt sophomore this year. He's a very young football player. I love Drake Maye. I love watching him. He's so exciting. He's got that ability to rumble as a runner. I don't think he'll be nearly as good as Josh Allen, but it's that same sort of guy who's so athletic that can move with that build. And the Patriots draft room is clapping it up to make that selection at 3 now with the Arizona Cardinals on the clock.
And
at 4.
William, talking about fit here with Maye, I'm of the opinion that situation matters more than anything else for quarterbacks going into the NFL. And we just touched on how New England is probably the worst situation out of the top 3 for any of these quarterbacks. Holes on the offensive line, not a ton of talent in terms of pass catchers. What does New England need to do in this draft to set Drake Maye up for success? Because he's going into a situation that is not setting him up for success. A defensive-minded head coach as well typically does not favor success for young quarterbacks when you compare it to a situation like the Vikings where J.J. McCarthy may end up. Offensive-minded head coach, a fantastic play caller, excellent receivers on the outside and over the middle at tight end. Offensive line, not perfect, but you have some pieces there. Night and day for these quarterbacks. And you talked about having Maye number 2 on your board, J.J. much further down. Well, that's where potentially you see big differences in careers.
So I'm looking at the Patriots depth chart right now. Their current wide receiver 1 is K.J. Osborne, former Minnesota Viking, who I think is a good player, but not as your number 1 wide receiver. You got Kendrick Bourne at number 2 and Demario Douglas, Jalen Reagor, Tyquan Thornton, Juju Smith-Schuster. that's a lot of nothing, really. And he needs more help than that. The offensive line needs some work. Mike Onwenu, former Wolverine, starting at right tackle, but a 6th-round pick, Connor McDermott, in 2017, starting at left. Cole Strange, 1st-round pick, who I actually think is a good football player. David Andrews as well, but a lot of work needed. Ramondre Stevenson. And then on the defense, I think that'll shape up to be still a good unit with some nice young players. But Maye needs help as the Cardinals are sticking and picking at number 4, no trade. So we're going to see who Arizona takes. All of the odds point to Marvin Harrison Jr., the number 1 wide receiver in this draft.
And I'd say our instincts point there as well when you look at fit and talent on the board. Marvin Harrison Jr., some people's number 1 overall prospect in this draft, and for good reason, absolutely lit it up at Ohio State. The kid can play.
We're waiting on the announcement, but for Harrison Jr., he is, for me, I have him at number 4 behind Rome Odunze. I think I just like Rome Odunze more. That's my bias. And Marvin Harrison Jr., an Ohio State University graduate. Well, I don't know if he graduated, but he's not there anymore. He was a Buckeye, and that might play into it as well. But he's got the smoothest routes I've seen from a college receiver. Incredible body control and catching ability. But the reason he ranks below Odunze for me is that lack of physicality against press coverage, lack of physicality in the run blocking game, and I don't know. There's this lingering bias that I have about Marvin Harrison Jr., but we'll see if the Cardinals pick him here. So Marvin Harrison Jr., the selection for Arizona at number 4. We got a quick graphic we want to fire up, though, that's about the quarterbacks. So life after Caleb, we got Drake Maye, we got Jaden Daniels. Next 2 available, J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix Jr. I put Penix in here. He's not on my top 50, but Bo Nix, the odds are on him to be out of the first round, left out of the first round. Penix maybe jumping in towards the end, and then J.J. McCarthy will be a firm first-round pick. But these are the guys that teams have to pick from after Caleb. And Maye goes, Daniels goes. We'll see what's next after Arizona picks Marvin Harrison Jr. to help out Kyler Murray after the departure of DeAndre Hopkins.
And this pick here, Marvin Harrison Jr., it's a great pick for Minnesota. This is a slam dunk at number 4, getting arguably the best player in the draft regardless of position. It's really hard to argue with this. You have a true number 1 receiver for your quarterback that you reinvested in, Kyler Murray, to throw the football to. An opportunity for an Arizona team that was scrappy last year and showed signs of life to bring in some real A-tier talent and create some opportunities offensively down the field. This guy's a playmaker. He's a future all-pro level talent and somebody that I think Cardinals fans can be very excited about in the future, hooking up with Kyler Murray 100-plus times.
So on the clock now, the Los Angeles Chargers, and they're recharging with new head coach Jim Harbaugh. Kellen, what do we feel about the Chargers' direction here?
Well, the Chargers last season really struggled under head coach Brandon Staley, 5-12, last in the AFC West. This is a team that was supposed to be competing with the Chiefs for the top spot in that division. And they, like you just said, have to recharge this offseason. Lost Keenan Allen, lost Austin Eckler, lost Mike Williams, their 3 biggest offensive weapons this season. Let go of Brandon Staley, brought in Jim Harbaugh to reshape this football team. And while Michigan fans are unhappy that he's no longer in Schembechler Hall in Ann Arbor, Chargers fans should be really excited about what they've got going on here. Their tone this entire offseason has been, we're going to be a physical football team, we're going to play hard, we're going to play strong, and they've shown that with their acquisitions, bringing in Gus Edwards to play running back this offseason. He's a real rough and tough, pound-it kind of running back. So we'll see what this selection is here, but the Chargers, the favorite to trade out of this pick and potentially see somebody like the Vikings trade up for J.J. McCarthy. There's 4 teams that we've seen on the horn here, and it's Minnesota and then Denver and Las Vegas as some quarterback teams, and potentially a team like Chicago that may want to come up to pick one of these receivers that are left on the board in Malik Neighbors or Odunze. Perhaps they want to come up and get the top tackle on the board, Joe Alt. Chicago with some firepower still with that number 9 pick, but the Chargers in need of cheap talent, William, at a number of positions. Outside of Rashawn Slater and Justin Herbert, there's not a ton looking forward about this team to be excited about.
There's not really anything there but Slater and Herbert. They still do have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, Derwin James. But
now, to be fair, Herbert and Slater are 2 great franchise pieces to build around.
I mean, that's why Jim Harbaugh wanted the job.
Positions.
You have your franchise quarterback, you have your franchise left tackle, you have the number 5 overall pick. It's a really fun challenge for Harbaugh to finally, try and get that Super Bowl after getting the national championship with Michigan, falling short with San Francisco in the NFL. It makes perfect sense why he left for this opportunity. This was the opportunity that he was going to leave for all along. He needed that franchise quarterback to make him want to leave Michigan because once you have that guy, you're set. Really, you just got to keep building the team up. And here, it's kind of if his philosophy at Michigan translates to the NFL. Kelin and I both think that Joe Alt would be the selection here to reinforce the offensive line and provide more for the running game. But
that would be the Jim Harbaugh pick.
They do not have a wide receiver with real NFL experience on the roster, and that's the tough thing. Do you take one of these big talent wide receivers, or do you stick to your philosophy and take the tackle? Joe Alt isn't a pedestrian. He's 6'9". His father played in the NFL. All the signs point to him being a future All-Pro.
He only started playing tackle 2 years ago. He was a tight end that shifted over. Some people are questioning whether he can shift from left tackle to right tackle.
But if he can do that,
already having Slater, but if you can move from tight end to left tackle, I think you can switch to the other side of the line.
And now we're seeing from Ian Rappaport, we heard that New England was receiving trade offers for the number 3 overall pick. Big-time trade offers is what he said. L.A. has let this clock go down to 2 minutes and 30 seconds right now. We could see a trade here. If they can't work it out, they'll stick and pick. But this is the first real movement of the draft that we are waiting for, and it happens with Jim Harbaugh on the Los Angeles Chargers. If somebody's coming up, it'll probably be for a quarterback. I think Chicago wants to come up for one of these playmakers, but you're not going to outbid a team that wants a quarterback. No way that is happening.
Well, the quarterback premium on draft night is a real thing.
And now Minnesota can trade 11 and 23 and maybe their first-round pick next year, but that's a lot. Minnesota does not have a second-round pick this year because they gave that up to Houston for the 23.
Pick.
Denver has their first-round pick at 12. They have their second-round pick. They have next year. Sean Payton has talked about wanting to go all in for a quarterback. And they also have been dangling Patrick Surtain, who could soon walk in free agency from Denver. And that's a guy where it's like he's not under contract for all that much. He is arguably the second-best cornerback in the league behind Sauce Gardner. A lot of people have been saying that. Those veteran players kind of push it over the hump because if you can add Patrick Surtain, that's almost another first-round pick. And if you ask Denver for more, they'll probably give it to you if they really love J.J. McCarthy. But we don't know. The draft has gone to commercial, so we're still waiting on what L.A. does here at 5.
And we talked about some of these potential packages. We've talked about if the Chargers stick and pick. Again, it's most likely somebody 11 through 13, Minnesota, Denver, or Las Vegas, that's trying to move up and get a quarterback, presumably J.J. McCarthy.
The Chargers are picking. Report from Ian Rappaport. The Chargers have made their pick. And we'll wait for Commissioner Roger Goodell to step up.
And so
the Giants after the Chargers could pick J.J. McCarthy. We'll
exactly. The Giants at 6 are the team that all these other quarterback-hungry teams down the board are trying to jump over. And that's kind of been the question this whole time is will the Giants go quarterback if J.J. McCarthy's sitting there at 6 You mentioned on our pre-draft show, William, that Joe Shane and that organization has been airtight with their plans for the draft. So it seems like Minnesota and some of these other teams are willing to take the gamble, and perhaps the price was too steep. Maybe a trade-up happens at somewhere like 8 when the price comes down a little bit, and these teams, 11 through 13, try to jump over each other.
Still waiting on LA to announce their pick. The Giants are on the clock, and we will see what direction they take. Now, for the Chargers, to me, I mean, it's difficult to say because the wide receiver that was most heavily featured in Jim Harbaugh's offense at Michigan this season was Roman Wilson, who's a smaller guy.
Much more comparable to a Malik Neighbors than a Rome Odunze.
But in the NFL, and I mean this is 10 years ago, Michael Crabtree was the number 1 for San Francisco under Jim Harbaugh. And he walked into that scenario with Crabtree. But I think Rome Odunze is a much better comp to Crabtree than Neighbors. We will see as Commissioner Goodell strolls up to the podium. Joe Alt.
And Alt's the pick. And William, I've been beating the drum for Joe Alt for a
right.
while now. At number 5 here to the Chargers. This is a Jim Harbaugh pick. I'm going to take my victory lap on this one because even when Malik Neighbors and J.J. McCarthy were the clear betting favorites to go number 5, I was pounding the table to you saying, no, Alt is going to be the guy if they keep this pick and select here at 5, which they did. And I think this is a great fit for Jim Harbaugh. They want to protect Justin Herbert, and they want to run the football. And Joe Alt shifting to right tackle for them, that's going to get that job done. Now, the Chargers, I'm sure, would have loved to pick up 2 first-round picks and maybe not get a guy that's quite as good as Alt, but get a guy like Fuaga maybe there at 11 and then pick up another player at 23. Obviously, that didn't work out, but the J.J. McCarthy sweepstakes is it's still ongoing.
And so for Joe Alt, the notes I have on him are huge in all caps. That is the word I have on my notes document. He is a fluid athlete, though. Kelin, you mentioned he converted from tight end to offensive tackle. Notre Dame seems to pump out these high-level offensive line prospects. Quentin Nelson was a top 10 pick at guard, as his ceiling is a surefire Hall of Famer. So the Colts are like, if we can pick a Hall of Famer, let's take him. Alt, I don't know if he has that same connotation right now, but he is an incredible prospect, a physical run blocker, and run blocking is tough when you're that tall. It's hard to get your pad level low enough to get the leverage necessary to make the move in the run blocking game, but Alt seems to be physical enough to do that. I mean, he's just so massive. I can't emphasize this enough. You don't see guys this big that often in the NFL, and especially not this good as a pass protector. I think he showcases the ability to reset in pass pro if he's, put off balance by a defensive lineman, and I think that's a good sign for a guy who's pretty new to the position. For L.A., you're not moving Slater off of left tackle, but maybe, I don't know, he played every offensive line position at Northwestern, so we could see maybe Alt moves to left, Slater to right, but Slater's an all-pro left tackle. I think the days of the NFL of really worrying about who's at left, who's at right are gone because the passing game is so important that you need both tackles to be good. But we'll see. The Giants have let 5 minutes go down on their clock, and if that's the case, I'm not sure that it's a sprint up to the podium, take J.J. McCarthy. I think they're
I completely
Malik
agree.
Neighbors. They're, I think, battling to see really who they're taking or maybe a trade back. But it seems like they're going to pick, I think.
And so Neighbors was the odds-on favorite to go here at 6
for a while.
But again, we have not heard a lot of rumors out of Giants HQ. I think we're presuming this is a receiver here. But
we've got
Odunze or Neighbors.
We both have
the
same
guy.
6'7", Neighbors and Odunze.
And the pick is in, so New York's going to stick and pick.
And we'll see.
This is one that even today I've been going back and forth on. I know I have Neighbors in my mock, but Odunze may be a guy that New York feels they want to go after with his size and physicality downfield.
And again, the top 3 wide receivers that I have Odunze, Harrison, Neighbors at 6. So they're all pretty bunched up together now. We've got this little graphic here. Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, Odunze. We will see after Harrison was taken by the Cardinals if it's Odunze or Neighbors or a trade out or, well, their pick is in. It's not a trade out. If it's a quarterback or if it's one of these 2 wide receivers. Odunze has this reputation of being so physical, but he still ran a 4.45.
Oh.
He's 6'3", 212. Neighbors a bit smaller, but a 4.35. Neighbors.
These are three excellent receivers here, William, and a guy like Neighbors or Odunze is probably the number 1 overall receiver prospect in last year's draft.
And I think you could see MHJ's stats are a little bit lower than these 2 guys. They play in quarterback-friendly schemes, and Marvin Harrison Jr.'s quarterback was Kyle McCord. Watching Marvin Harrison's film, there were a lot of throws that McCord just missed for him. And, I don't know how you miss that guy. He's open about 99%.
Some of the throws you saw last year from Stroud to Harrison were just jaw-dropping. Commissioner's out for the Giants pick.
Malik Neighbors.
And it is Neighbors.
We're here in the draft room, and somebody said it before Commissioner Goodell announced the pick. But it's Neighbors. Giants keep the board. We're 6 for 6, both of us.
Quietly 6 for 6.
There's not much debate in these guys, but
this is where things start to get a little more interesting.
Well, we keep saying it, but it is true. With Alt off the board, what does Tennessee do?
Because Joe Alt was, you look at the outside of the top 3 picks, or 4, excuse me. So number 5 and number 6, there was no dominant favorite to go there. No one that was minus odds to go there. Joe Alt was sitting close to minus 200 to go number 7 to Tennessee for a long time. And now with him off the board, there's a couple different angles Tennessee could take here, William. Rome Odunze, obviously, the talented receiver out of Washington that we got to see in the national championship game. The guy can absolutely ball on the perimeter. The flip side of that is they go tackle, whether that be Olu Fashanu, J.C. Latham, maybe even Fuaga. But Tennessee at 7, I'm intrigued to see what they do here. We both mocked Rome Odunze, but would not be shocked if it was Olu Fashanu. I had him going there.
I think I'd be shocked at this point. Vegas had him at plus 2,000 at 7. I think it's more of a trade down for Fashanu or one of the other tackles for Tennessee. I think their flow chart was Neighbors. If Alt's not there, that's the prerequisite. If Alt is taken by LA, it's Neighbors, it is a trade out, or then it's Odunze. But maybe it's not. I think that they have a lot of holes too. There's a reason these teams are picking at the top of the draft. They have holes, and it's kind of inefficient to stick and pick and not take a quarterback. If I'm being honest, that's what the analytics say. You have higher contracts for these players, and you're losing the opportunity to create surplus value. But they stay and pick, and Neighbors is the pick here for the Giants. I will say, I do really like Neighbors. Not a lot, not as much as some other people. I think my concern with him is that he's not a true X wide receiver. He's about 3/4 of the time out of the slot, but he's so freaking quick. I also think he is more of a limited route tree, a lot of outs, quick hooks, quick curls, and then goes were a huge part of LSU's game with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. He's just faster than almost every other cornerback on the field. It's college pass defenses, so they're not great. I think he's also got great contested catch and yak ability, yards after the catch. I just have Odunze and Marvin Harrison Jr. ranked higher, but that's not a knock on Neighbors as a prospect. I think he provides so much juice to this Giants offense, and if Daniel Jones can't get it done with him, you move on next year and find another quarterback.
And you look at a Giants offense that lost Saquon Barkley over the offseason going to division rival Philadelphia. Neighbors is an absolute playmaker and a spark plug that you can insert at receiver. A guy that can transition an offense and completely transform an offense, and somebody that Brian Daboll has got to be ecstatic about having in the building now.
get a little more ecstatic, says Townsend Meredith, about these picks. We're perfect. This is the second time I've been perfect in the past 4 years. I got the Trevor Lawrence 2021 draft perfect through the first 6, and then I messed up the Lions pick. I should have known it was Sewell, but I got it wrong. It said we were getting Devontae Smith.
Didn't I pick Sewell?
Let me check. I have it up here. Like I said, we've been doing these mocks for – we should have made something about this, but we've been doing these mocks together for like 7 years. I've had 6 straight picks right in the 2021 draft, and then I think in the 2020 draft I had 6 out of 7. But if we move past this and Odunze goes, that's my record.
The
7 in a row.
Tennessee pick is in, so no trade down. And J.J. McCarthy, who was a favorite to go in the top 5, likely going to be sitting there at 8. And neither of us are expecting him to go at 8. But we talked about this, that this is a very real scenario that may happen where
J.J. just falls to 11.
There just isn't the demand for the quarterback ahead here. And you have the top 3 guys that all go, and after that, all of these teams are set at quarterback, which is not something you often see at the top of the draft where, 1 through 3 need quarterback, they get their guys, but then 4 through 10 all set at the QB position.
Yeah, and we're waiting. Another commercial break, the NFL making us sit here and wait. We don't take commercials. We're WCBN Sports. Even at the draft, we're live the whole way through, and we're live for the whole first round, folks. It's been about an hour on this broadcast. We're only at pick 7, but it should go faster as the draft goes on. It should get a little more exciting with the trades. Obviously, not having commercials, we have a little bit more time to shoot the breeze.
And Clay St. John, we're trying our hardest to put the W in WCBN. We're just out here trying to put on a show for all the folks at home, whether that be at 1125, across Ann Arbor, across the state of Michigan, and all across the country, all across the world. Thank you for letting 2 college kids provide you our coverage and analysis of the NFL draft. Like we've mentioned, we've been doing this for a long time, just the 2 of us together, and finally getting the chance with the draft in Detroit to do it for real this time.
And I mentioned in our pre-draft DSR show that we're both pretty reliable. There's a mock draft accuracy website. You can look at it. It gives 2 points to match a player to a team, 1 point for each player correct in the first round. So, for instance, maybe like right now we both have 12 points, 6 players matched correctly to teams. And that gives us 2 points each. 12. Do the math. But I'm averaging over the past 5 seasons a 42.6, and really that's over the last 4 I'm averaging closer to like 45, 43, 44. I had a bad showing in the 2019 draft, and that number would put me like number 6 among a lot of local newspaper mock drafts, a lot of national mock drafts. Kelin at 40 points over the last 5 years per draft, putting him around number 20 in the top 20 of these national and local journalists. So if you want the correct picks to come in, look at our mock drafts. We're better than a lot of other people.
We don't have any inside information.
Yeah,
we're
we
not
don't talk to
necessarily plugged in, but we're just trying to read the tea leaves as best we can.
I did know the 3 teams that were going to draft Jake Moody next year. I didn't know the 1, but I knew the 49ers were one of them. Overheard a conversation, and he eventually went to the 49ers. That's the only draft intel I've ever gotten that was, like, just to me. Some insider tweets or Reddit posts or whatever you can see, but you don't know if they're legit. But that was something I received. That's cool, but that's about it. And Jake Moody's not going in the first round.
No, he's not. And thank you again to everyone who's tuning in, whether you're in the line at Rick's for one of the last Thursday pushes, which is what we've heard, or sitting in the comfort of your own home.
There's a lot of just like masses of people in Michigan right now.
Yeah.
Like at the Rick's line, at the NFL draft, it's a mosh pit. I don't know, Owen Klein, if you're listening, you can chime in from Gawbaw.
And
you were there watching the draft.
The commissioner's making his way.
Tennessee's going to stick and pick, man. Nothing
out to the stage.
See, like, a lot of people said that this top 10 was going to be super exciting, and I thought so, too. I think the rest of the draft's going to be exciting, but this top 10 just seemed like it was going to be chalk, or at least, not a lot of movement.
Yeah.
Whoa,
and it is Latham.
Latham.
All the way up to 7.
There's the first one that breaks our streak.
He got some buzz.
He got buzz late, and we didn't buy it.
And this is something we've tried to learn over the last couple of years, is that stuff in the last 24 hours tends to be more smoke than true. And that time, there was some buzz for Latham to go as high as 5. We didn't buy that for sure, but Latham goes at 7. So now, sitting at 8, Atlanta likely fielding some phone calls for Odunze, the top receiver remaining on the board.
I mean, I've heard they might just take him there. They could use another wide receiver. They have Drake London, and he's been comped to Drake London, actually, but I just think anything is possible now with this pick. I will say that I think, you texted me and you're like, can we move J.C. Latham down the board? Guess what? He's my number 10 prospect, and he's taken at number 7. I'm higher, I think, on Latham than a lot of people. He's huge, and he can still play tackle. Like, you watch him on film, and oh, my God, he just bear-hugged Roger Goodell and lifted him off the ground. That's the physicality Latham has. He is huge. During the Rose Bowl, we saw him live during the Rose Bowl when Michigan played Alabama. But I had researched a Bleacher Report scouting report on Latham, and they said he had padlocks for hands and finishes his blocks thunderously. And I couldn't describe that better. I will say he's almost a wall at the point of attack. He's stout in pass protection and in the run game. But I will say he's weaker against athletic edges. He's got some slow feet that can be refined. Bill Callahan is the offensive line coach, the father of their new head coach, Brian Callahan, for the Titans. He has been known as one of, if not the best, offensive line developers ever. So Latham's going there. He'll immediately slot in. He's athletic enough to play left tackle or right tackle. He was a natural right tackle at Alabama with Caden Proctor stepping in at left, the freshman who kind of bounced between Iowa and Alabama. So Latham now, I just looked up the depth chart for the Titans, and he's already slotted in at left tackle. Dylan Radins, the second-round pick in 21, at right. And Will Levis gets some more protection and has Traylon Burks, Calvin Ridley, and DeAndre Hopkins. I guess if that was, something to consider with Odunze. I mean, Burks, I think, has not met expectations, so you're not really worried about him. But Hopkins is going to be 34 next season, probably not with the Titans. And think about him as a possible replacement. But now Latham at left tackle, Skoronski at left guard. Titans signed Lloyd Cushenberry and Daniel Brunskill this season. Some good moves for Tennessee. Do we have any commotion going on with Atlanta?
I think there might be some commotion.
Let me check Rappaport. Nothing from Rappaport. Whoa. We're going to keep that under wraps for a minute, I think, because we don't want to spoil some stuff for some other people. But
receiving news that there's going to be some.
There's going to be a big surprise here.
A shocker here at 8.
Number 8. I like.
Wow.
We're going to hold our breath. J.C. Latham was a really good player. I thought when you said there's commotion for Atlanta that you meant there was going to be a trade. I'm stunned.
I am too. I did not have that.
We're killing people right now. I don't want to spoil it for some people, but
let us know in the comments if
you can spoil
you're
it for
trying to
yourself.
Stay off of. It's on Twitter if you're interested in hearing what we're talking about.
Yeah, Townsend gassed us up, and then we immediately get the next 2 picks completely wrong. The pick is in for the Falcons officially.
Wow.
So they're not trading out, and you will see shortly, maybe do a little bit of foreshadowing here. We got Life After Caleb, folks. And there was a last-minute addition on this graphic.
And it's Life After
Maye,
Kirk Cousins that the Falcons are looking at.
And, when you think about that, when you're thinking about taking a developmental quarterback to sit behind somebody, you want to take the youngest guy, right?
That's what stuns me so much about this. That's what I don't really understand is
Kirk Cousins is guaranteed for $100 million, by the way. He signed a 4-year deal. He's there for 2 or 3 years at least.
And I guess we haven't heard the official pick made yet, but
We haven't heard the official pick made yet, but that's why we're waiting. But there is something really weird about this. Commissioner Goodell's stepping up.
and I checked Twitter because I heard some oohs and ahs and wows across the media room here.
I
And here's
mean,
Commissioner Goodell.
whoa.
And there it is, Michael
Whoa.
Penix, the quarterback from Washington, off the board to Atlanta at number 8. That is a jaw-dropping pick in the top 10. Penix,
I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. I just said I'm thinking about this being a boring top 10. The Falcons would sit and take
Hello.
Dallas Turner. Hello. Penix, 24 years old, and you want him to sit behind Kirk Cousins for 2 to 3 years.
I am floored.
Okay, let's dive into what I have on Michael Penix.
We got to see him live at the national championship game against, albeit a fantastic Michigan defense, one of the best defenses in college football that we've seen over the last decade or so. But
We're not on ESPN. We're not on NFL Network, so I'm sharing my real thoughts. This is an awful pick. This deserves an F. Atlanta needs so much more. And they take
anything on defense,
Trade
all
out.
the top pass rushers are
Trade
still
out.
on the board.
Do something. Do something else. You cannot take this guy at 8. He's 24. You just gave $100 million to a proven NFL quarterback, so you're going to have Penix sit. I have him. I actually deleted his notes, so I'm going to have to go off the dome. We can flash my top 50. Take a look. He's not on it. Spencer Rattler looked better to me. Michael Penix had 3 NFL wide receivers. He's 24 years old. He's had 4 season-ending injuries. He's built like a guy that's going to have another. I mean, I hope for the best. But talking about this critically, Penix misses routine throws. He's not mobile anymore. He used to be at Indiana. And I mean, I'm at a loss for words.
It just doesn't make any sense to me because you see this pick, and you talked about it. Kirk Cousins is $100 million in guaranteed money. Nobody thought Atlanta was going quarterback, but if they were to take a guy like J.J. McCarthy here, that at least you can say,
J.J.
okay.
McCarthy's 21 years old. He's
Exactly.
4 years younger than
J.J.'s
Penix.
21. He can sit for a year, even 2. And then
And he
you're
probably
saying,
needs to.
okay, we've got a super talented young quarterback that can come in and take over for Kirk Cousins here. All of a sudden, so you're saying that you're going to have a 26-year-old, 27-year-old starting quarterback? I really don't.
And you just moved off Desmond Ridder, who to me is not that much different than Penix.
Chicago's pick is in really quickly at 9. Now
Well, it's Odunze. It's Odunze. There's no way it's not.
This feels like a potential home run for Chicago.
Like,
if they can pair Odunze.
Caleb Williams tweeted out that he saw Rome Odunze on the flight to Detroit. He loves that guy. Caleb Williams is going to have Rome Odunze. I mean, barring something incredible, he's going to have Rome Odunze as his I guess, number 3 wide
target.
receiver right now.
Chicago.
Well, Keenan Allen's going to operate out of the slot. I think Allen's older, so you put him in the slot. DJ Moore can still win outside. And then you have Odunze. I just want to look at the Falcons' depth chart real quick because, I mean, this is like a fireable offense to me for Terry Fontenot and, setting up Raheem Morris, who's a defensive-minded head coach, for failure, really, I think. Earliest 4 QBs have been selected, first ever. Yeah. But I look at this Falcons roster. They got needs at linebacker. They got needs at corner. They got needs in the defensive line.
We both thought that pass rusher. I initially had Byron Murphy
Even
Mock
take
there.
Odunze. They have Drake London, but then their next two receivers are Darnell Mooney and Rondale Moore.
I don't understand the direction for the team then. You make the Kirk Cousins signing because you think you want to win now because you have the playmakers and the talent on offense in Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts and Drake London. But then you go and get a core. I'm just not sure what the direction is for Atlanta with the new regime in town.
And the thing about Penix, oh man,
The two college football playoff games were night and day from him. The Texas game was some of the best tape we saw from
which
a
is
quarterback
not a
all
good
year.
defense. Texas was not a good defense.
Chicago's making their pick right now.
Rome Odunze.
And it's the wide receiver out of Washington. Penix and his number one target go back-to-back.
As a Lions fan, Atlanta, don't really like that from you. Gifting Chicago my number 3 player and my number 1 player on my board. Not much else. I do want to say one last thing on Penix. He does not operate well in a NFL-type offense. He just would throw deep. Washington could run 4 verts with their 3 NFL wide receivers. Odunze left 500 more yards on the field because Penix would overthrow him. Michigan played a real NFL defense, and Penix couldn't decipher it. Ridiculous. Anyways, Rome Odunze, the reason I have him as my number 3 overall player, great size, prototypical size, 6'3", an athletic freak, a 991 RAS, a relative athletic score. So compared to, nearly 2,000 wide receivers that have tested for the NFL draft since 1987, he is at least top 100. He can make any catch if the ball is on target. That's a little bit of subtext against Penix. He missed him a lot. And the little things are there. This catch and route technique, his patience, his run blocking is great. He's so freaking physical at the point of attack. He is, I believe, see the first OKG I got off the board?
I believe he is.
He's my first R kind of guy off the board at number 9. I've highlighted some prospects that I really love, and Odunze is the first one off. I think he's a dog. I love him. He's my favorite player in the class. I will say that without a doubt. 66% of the balls that were contested, or 6%, I got to find a way to format this correctly. On contested catches, he caught those balls 66% of the time, and Minnesota has traded to number 10, only 1 spot up, so that means somebody else was trying to come up to take whoever Minnesota's going to take. They flip out Brock Bowers, New York Jets, who we assume will take Brock Bowers. Bit of a Freudian slip. Minnesota at 10 now. We'll see who they gave up. It can't be all that much.
And the details on the trade, 11 and 129 and 157 for number 10. So a couple of day 3 picks to the Jets to drop down 1 spot, still get their guy. We're assuming this is the Vikings coming up to get J.J. McCarthy with the fourth quarterback coming off the board in Michael Penix. Now,
I have to wonder,
J.J., the last guy, and with a team like Atlanta taking him, you still have teams like Denver and Las Vegas that are without a quarterback.
Raheem Morris apparently loves Michael Penix. I have to wonder what Atlanta, I just got to say one more thing. Kyle Pitts at number 4, Drake London at 8, Bijan at 8, Penix at 8 the last 4 years. All offense. It's not great pick allocation. Pitts has kind of been a ghost. Robinson's a running back. Penix, not a 24-year-old quarterback. But I have to wonder what team forced Minnesota's hand to trade up 1 spot for really not all that much, or maybe they just want to secure it, and the Jets were more than okay to pick up a 4th-round pick.
Yeah, I'm really not sure. It's an interesting
it's not often you see teams move up 1 spot. The Eagles moved up, I think, in the Parsons draft, right?
I think they might have moved up 2, but clearly not trying to jump the Jets. It's a team presumably like Denver.
The Jets would be a perfect landing spot for J.J. McCarthy, really.
I don't
with
disagree.
Aaron Rodgers at 40. They got to win now, so they're not going to take him, but in a vacuum, that would be the case. Yeah, the Eagles traded, the last time I remember a trade that, small of a gap, the Eagles traded up from 12 to 10 with their division rival Cowboys to take Devontae Smith, and the Cowboys take Micah Parsons in that draft. who, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Devontae Smith, a good receiver in his own right. A.J. Brown did get extended right before the draft started. And we'll see who's official for Minnesota, but I have a feeling that we already know.
And J.J. McCarthy, this is huge for the Vikings because Minnesota now gets to keep that pick at 23. And that's a potential cornerback or edge rusher that Minnesota gets to hold on to instead of having to move into the top 5 to get their guy in J.J. McCarthy. This is a huge win for Minnesota in the draft. Big winners so far. I'd say Chicago and Minnesota with how the draft has broke for them so far. William, would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what they wanted, and they really didn't have to give up all that much for what they wanted, which is, that's what you want to have happen. That's what good front offices do. And I'm pretty sure we know what it's going to be, but we'll have to wait on the NFL to patch us in for the commissioner. Man, I cannot believe it. That freaking Michael Penix went in the top 10.
That's definitely been the shock of the draft so far. I don't know anyone that had that.
Because everything else has been boring. This is all kind of exactly what we saw. Maybe, we got the Latham pick wrong, but they're going to take a tackle.
Wow.
But Dallas Turner had been mocked to Atlanta this whole time. And there is a thing of, you have to think when it's that supposedly sure that there's going to be something, a curveball
especially
thrown.
At a spot like 8. In the top 3,
but
it's
a quarterback, nobody. Some people had Atlanta, but I just thought that was typical quarterback, sort of hullabaloo. Will Levis was the odds-on favorite to be the number 2 pick last draft, and he went in the second round. So this quarterback stuff, you never know, and now it's certainly proven that you never know. Neither of us had Penix even in the first round.
And all of a sudden, because Atlanta's not a team that you had on your quarterback bingo card, that expedites the process and kind of the domino effect here, because Minnesota then trades up for McCarthy because he's the last guy they have that they'll consider taking a quarterback on their board, presumably. And now a team like Denver or Las Vegas, what do?
Yeah. So
there's a big gap between Bo Nix. Assuming JJ's the guy here, there's a big gap.
Well, I'm
between
saying,
Bo
who knows?
Nix.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Minnesota has been rumored to maybe skip on him and go for Nix, so it could be a defensive player that somebody else wanted. We still don't know just yet, but it's a mystery for the time being. Denver, the other team involved, and then now the Raiders, Seahawks in the mix. We shall see. Pick is in for Minnesota. And we know a lot about J.J. I assume everybody listening does as well.
Wow, Penix.
Man. I'm glad I fired him into this graphic this morning. I had Nix in this 4th spot because I just like Nix better. But I had a feeling that Penix would go. I didn't know where he'd go, so I didn't put him in my first round mock draft. Neither of us did. You can look here. He's not here. He's not in my top 50, but he's snuck into the first round at 8, and now Minnesota Vikings at 10, trading up 1 spot.
And the Vikings moving on from Kirk Cousins. Playoff team 2 years ago, and then upset by the Giants in the wild card round there, missing the playoffs this past season. And now a chance to reset the franchise clock at quarterback. I don't know that you're trading up for anything but QB here.
And we will see the NFC North landscape will be decidedly different after this pick, no matter who it is.
I 3 young quarterbacks in the division with Jordan Love, who looked fantastic down the stretch for Green Bay this season. Now Caleb Williams, a number 1 overall pick, and perhaps J.J. McCarthy, who likely won't start week 1, but could be the future.
And Michigan fans, of course, conflicted that a division rival, if they are a Lions fan, a Wolverine with a division rival.
And it's J.J.
Ooh, doggy.
And that's a perfect landing spot for McCarthy. Can sit behind Sam Darnold, who they brought in over the offseason for half a year if needed, and then inherit the best receiver in football, a second fantastic young receiver in Jordan Addison, an elite young tight end in T.J. Hawkinson, and get to really learn under the fantastic tutelage of Kevin O'Connell, former NFL quarterback, one of the bright offensive minds in the league. I don't think you can ask for a much better situation if you're McCarthy, and the team you're going to now gets to keep their second first-round pick and build that roster up even more.
I'm still coming down off this Penix thing. I don't know what odds you could have had on J.J. being the 5th quarterback off the board, but I think they would have been pretty good.
J.J. McCarthy was favored to go in the top 5 this entire cycle.
You could take
last
stock
couple
of this
weeks or
top 10
so.
here on our real draft order. New York Jets at 11. We both have them taking Brock Bowers, so we'll take a look at our mock drafts here. And I'll talk a bit about J.J. McCarthy. So had those top 6. Then we got 3 wrong. Minnesota moves up to 11. We'll count that as a right selection. We have the player matching the team that they go to. We both have Brock Bowers to 10, and then it'll start to 11 to the Jets now. And then it'll start getting interesting. But a bit on J.J. McCarthy, my notes as I scouted him. I didn't actually watch much film because I saw it all live. I saw every game this season in person. And the one thing that stands out about J.J., this is off the field, really, I guess, you could just see it from him. He's a winner. He's at all the intangibles. He won in high school, won a state championship in Illinois, came to Michigan, said, I'm going to beat Ohio State. Did that 3 times. Well, he did it twice and won the national title. He is, he's a young guy, so he's got a bit of a smaller frame. We've seen that from recent quarterbacks. They just keep getting smaller and smaller. There was an article I saw in Apple News today, I forget which outlet it was from, but just that quarterbacks keep getting smaller. Joe Flacco used to be the prototype. He's 6'6", big guy, and now it's Bryce Young, Kyler Murray, J.J. McCarthy. Jaden Daniels isn't exactly short, but he's small. And for J.J. on the football side, I've said this all year. He is an accurate quarterback, and he has arm talent, but he only throws the ball 1 speed, and it's a bullet. He kind of has poor ball placement and doesn't have the ability to layer throws over defenders, and I think that's a big reason why Michigan didn't kind of stick him in the pocket and let him rip it that often. He's a spectacular playmaker, but I think some of his biggest plays come from some of his biggest areas for growth. That throw against Ohio State to Roman Wilson over 2 defenders, that was a bad read, but a very lucky play that he put the ball right where only Roman Wilson could catch it for a touchdown. He has some processing mistakes that lead to a lot of his throws thrown underneath. But he's good on 3rd down, can create under pressure. He's so fast, and we'll just have to see again. You never know with these quarterbacks if they translate to the NFL, but I'm counting on J.J. as, our guy, our quarterback in college that we watched. And a winner.
He's a guy that contributes to winning football. He's going to take some time to develop. He's 21 years old, very, very young, but a guy that can be the face of a franchise, no doubt, and somebody that I think Vikings fans are going to be really, really excited about. It's going to take some time, though. So Vikings fans need to understand that as the Jets are about to pick, but McCarthy's got a really high ceiling. And it's Olufashinu.
To the Jets. That was not the tackle that people had connected to them. It was Fuaga for a long time, and of course Brock Bowers became the favorite. But it's Olufashinu, who I do like. I have him at 12 with his pure pass blocking ability. He's now the third offensive lineman off the board in a first round that's probably going to see upwards of 10 drafted. Fashanu slots right in at right tackle or left. They do have Morgan Moses in New York. Tyron Smith was brought in the offseason as well, but he's out for the first 10 weeks of the season. So Fashanu can slide into either tackle spot to protect Aaron Rodgers, and of course the lack of protection led to him tearing his Achilles and missing almost the entirety of the season.
Particularly on that left side, the blind side of Aaron Rodgers, Olufashinu is arguably the best pass protector in this draft class. And what do the Jets want to do? They want to throw the football with Aaron Rodgers. They brought him there to try to win a Super Bowl, and they got to keep him upright. And
so now something really interesting. I mean, we thought it was Brock Bowers. He's such a playmaker, and Denver has the world of, oh my God, they just flew to the board. I think they're going to take Brock Bowers. It took them 15 seconds to get their pick in. Well, it could be anybody, but I think, to me, seeing the Jets pass on him, the Broncos want a big-time playmaker, and Bowers could be that for them, but they could take an edge. They could take a quarterback. See 6 quarterbacks on the first 12 picks with Nix. They do really like Nix, and he's the odds-on favorite to go to Denver. But on Fashanu, he's got great, quick footwork in pass protection, and that creates good reps in pass protection. Your feet, your body follows your feet. Your shoulders don't drive your body. Your feet do. He does a great job staying in front of edge rushers. And he is a good run blocker. But I think the biggest knock that I have on him, and I think the reason that he's the third offensive lineman off the board, is that he isn't physically dominant on tape. He doesn't bury guys like Joe Alt or J.C. Latham or Talisa Fuaga do. Doesn't do it like Cooper Beebe does, who's going to be shouted out a little bit later in this draft. But Fashanu, I think, can step right in for the Jets and provide them with something that'll get them to 10 or 11 wins in a playoff spot, which is what they want, just to get into the dance, and they think that they have the quarterback that can win in the playoffs in Aaron Rodgers. Time will tell, though. I mean, he's 40, so we'll see. But that's the Jets' game plan right now.
And I think this is the right choice for the Jets. You figure out the playmakers, but you have to keep him upright. Garrett Wilson's a guy you can count on. Aaron Rodgers has his guys he likes to throw the football to. You've got a fantastic running back in Breece Hall. Keep Rodgers upright. And, William, we've seen now 3 of these guys off the board that you see on your screen in Joe Alt, Olufashinu, and J.C. Latham. Talk to us about these last 3 guys in your top 6 tackles that we see here: Fuaga, Fautanu, and Barton.
For me, I would rank these Fuaga to Barton and then Fautanu. Fautanu is 24 years old. He can play any position on the offensive line. You see their relative athletic scores listed. These guys are all insanely athletic. That's the reason they're being taken here high. That's a recent switch in kind of all professional drafts, relying less on the eye test and more on that raw physical ability. You've seen it in the NBA. I mean, teams draft players in the lottery you never even saw play amateur basketball. I mean, it's not the same for these guys, but given the size of guys like Latham and Fuaga, I mean, it's ridiculous that they can move like this. These guys are starting out above 300 pounds. But Fuaga, Fautanu, and Barton, I think, are coming off a bit later because teams are not sure if they will stick at tackle in the NFL. Fashanu, Latham, and Alt will, in my opinion. And I think the other 3 guys can too, but other teams see them with kind of shorter arms as potential guards. Fautanu, especially at 6'3". I think Fautanu will be the last one off the board. That's what I have predicted in my mock draft. But we'll see now. Denver's pick is in at number 12.
And you mentioned it earlier. They dialed that pick in about as soon as they possibly could.
And we both have them taking Latu, but I assume it's going to be the tight end from Georgia.
And William, we are 11 picks in and yet to see a defensive player come off the board.
Which is a record. All time. There has never, it was, I believe, once Atlanta picked Penix, that was the record. Now we just keep smashing it.
And we knew coming into this draft that it wasn't a super strong defensive draft class. There was no slam dunk edge rusher, a Myles Garrett type, or even an Aiden Hutchinson type that you knew was going off in the top 5 picks. No Bosas that we've seen in the last 10 years. None of that. And without that, that's usually the cornerstone that defensive draft classes are built on. Didn't have that. You didn't have a clear-cut, dominant corner to go off in the top 10. And so now you're seeing the result of that. And there's a lot of really talented offensive players in this draft class. I think we're going to see another one go off the board. Now, Vegas at 13 is a spot where I think you could see a defensive player go with a potential run on tackles here.
And
all the
Byron
top
Murphy
pass
falling.
catchers off the board. You're going to have your pick of the litter of the edge rushers as well as the top interior defensive linemen in Murphy, and also all the top corners, Terrion Arnold and Quinyon Mitchell.
I think the Raiders could go in any direction. We have to see, though, what Denver takes. You know, if they don't take Bowers, you could see a team like Indianapolis jump up with Las Vegas, or you could see a team like Cincinnati jump up, 2 teams that really want him. Those were the 2 teams past the Jets that Vegas, not the Raiders, but the betting markets thought were in the most on Bowers.
And
have to see what
this
Denver
isn't
does,
necessarily Bowers here. I mean, we're predicting that's the pick, but it could be a guy like Latu. It could be a Quinyon Mitchell. It could be a Byron Murphy. We're not sure, so we'll see here as the commissioner makes his way to the board what this pick is. Maybe Denver thought they were going to take Fuaka, and they're happy to see he's still there, so we'll see.
I got a sneak peek. Yep.
Wow.
Another smash. Just unpredictable thing. Bo Nix. Well, I guess it's predictable like me, I had Nix to Denver for a long time. But it's Bo Nix to the Denver Broncos.
I just didn't think it was 12. I thought Denver and another team would trade back into the first to get Bo Nix and Michael Penix, and wow.
So, as disheartened as I am that, I didn't buy in to Nix being there in the first round. I listened to Vegas. They were wrong on the quarterbacks this year again. So let's just say Vegas is always wrong on the quarterbacks. That's what we know now. Nix, for me, is another our kind of guy, OKG. I have him, as I pull up the top 50, as the number 27 overall player, which is a lot higher than other people. He's still quarterback 5, but he's extremely accurate in the short game with great ball placement. He's got some footwork issues and structure to polish up. He is 24, but every season he has grown since his freshman year at Auburn, transferring to Oregon, and he's become a completely different quarterback. He was wildly inaccurate in that first year at Auburn, kind of thrown into the fire with the Tigers. Finishes this season with a completion percentage just north, I believe, of 77 or 78%, which was the NCAA Division I FBS record. Highest completion rate ever. He's got kind of medium arm talent, but he was able to make deep throws in a more college-type scheme at Oregon. He's older, he's got a lower ceiling, but he's such a capable passer that Denver feels the need to take him here at 12, and I love it. More than Penix. Denver needs a quarterback. They did just trade for Zach Wilson, which is why I think a lot of people didn't expect this to happen, but it's not like Wilson was ever going to be the answer.
No.
And they had Jarrett Stidham before that. Last thing I want to say on Nix, Sean Payton is the head coach of the Denver Broncos, and the most often used comparison for Bo Nix is Drew Brees. And I think Sean Payton saw Drew Brees. And what's interesting about Payton is that immediately Vegas' pick is in, I should say. But what's so interesting about Sean Payton is that he has this reputation of being such a great developer of quarterback. Drew Brees had a great season in San Diego before he got hurt and had to, leave San Diego and his career was almost over with the shoulder injury he had. Sean Payton took the risk, but he didn't develop Drew Brees. And since then, he didn't reclaim Russell Wilson. So I'm not exactly sure that Sean Payton is this all-time quarterback guru. Drew Brees is a Hall of Fame quarterback and was a Pro Bowler. Saw it with Belichick and Brady. Once Brady left, Belichick kind of floundered. So we'll have to see. I'm very interested in Knicks with the Broncos, and now Vegas is on the clock.
Vegas'
13.
pick is in. It's New Orleans that's on the clock. And so, William, we've seen now 12 straight offensive players go off the board. We knew there was going to be a run on offense to start the draft. I don't think any of us expected this. Do we start to see a run on defensive talent here? Byron Murphy, Latu, Dallas Turner, Quinyon Mitchell, all still on the board, all the top pass rushers, all the top DBs still sitting there at 13 for Las Vegas. And they're a team that has plenty of needs.
Goodell will step up, and we've heard the murmurs of who they're going to take, and it's going to be a big one for Oakland. Or Las Vegas. Brock Bowers.
Wow.
So, I mean, nobody would have predicted that. I think that Bowers would have fallen and that the Raiders would take him. They took Michael Mayer last year.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is Brock Bowers is an enigma at tight end. He is not your traditional tight end. He is so fluid with the ball in his hands, so electric as a playmaker, that he really should just be clumped in with those top three wide receivers rather than compared with any other tight end in this draft, Jatavion Sanders, Ben Sinnott. And I'm super excited. Wrong pick there. Real draft order here. Got the first 13 picks in. Brock Bowers goes 13 to Las Vegas. And on Bowers, I have him as an undersized, poor blocking tight end, but he is physical with the ball in his hands. He's a complete mismatch on the receiving end. Fluid at the catch point, a chain mover. Every catch he makes seems to move those chains for a first down. Under new head coach Antonio Pierce, I think Vegas wants Bowers to pair with Mayer and just be a really physical football team. Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams. The thing about Vegas, they're starting Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. Who, I mean, he's capable, but are you willing to bet that they're going to win?
You have to think if you can get enough talent around him. And O'Connell showed flashes at times last season. Played really well against the Chargers late in the year in what was a dominant win for that Raiders team. They're behind Antonio Pierce, but this is the time now, William, where I'm asking, okay, when are these defensive guys going to stop sliding? Who's going to potentially make a move up? Which one of these contenders maybe wants to move up and get a key defensive piece?
I think the Saints really didn't predict what was happening right now. They've taken about 5.5 minutes off the clock. Could be on the phone for trades. I mean, I think the Saints are in a really enviable position right now with so many, players having fallen. There must be so many teams wanting to come up to pick their guys that might be sliding. I also want to say for the Raiders, Zamir White is their current starting running back. I would not be surprised to see them pick a running back early in this draft to really beef up that offense and a defense that has been improved. Last thing I'll say on the Raiders. For the Saints, I think Byron Murphy's a fit there. I think any of the offensive linemen are a fit there. They're a team that has needs. With Derek Carr at quarterback, I think they were in on quarterbacks as well, but now 6 have gone in the first 12 picks, which is another record. This is a record-setting draft so far. A.T. Perry and Chris Olave pair at wide receiver. On defense, I think they could go, edge rusher, interior defensive line. But under general manager Mickey Loomis, they always are aggressive and trade up. That isn't the case here. The Saints have not traded back in the first round since 1997. And we could see that
Ian
with them
Rappaport
still on the clock.
reporting that they are listening to trade offers. Adam Schefter tweeted out just a minute ago saying, over 275,000 fans in attendance tonight, breaking the all-time day one draft record set in Nashville in 2018 of 200,000 plus. The people of Detroit showing out in droves.
Oh, yeah.
We touched on it earlier, but just so cool to see the city like this. It's
Rising
awesome.
from the ashes. We need more public transit, though. Shout out Owen Crane.
He's indoctrinated us on that.
The Q line and the People Mover are not enough. It still was an ordeal to get down here. We need more public transit in the city of Detroit and the Detroit metro area. Last thing on Brock Bowers, he was the last player in my top 10. Excuse me, Byron Murphy is the last player in my top 10 available. Bowers at 9 in my big board. Goes at 13 to the Raiders. I have to see what the Saints do. Ian Rappaport has reported that they will pick at 14. They won't trade after listening. They could go any which way here. The last thing I want to say about Detroit as well, Ian Rappaport also said earlier that he thinks this is better than Nashville. More energy is what he said before the draft kicked off, and I'm not surprised. Unlike Nashville, we have a real unified culture here.
I completely agree.
Nashville's a lot of transplants these days. Detroit is made up of people who are sticking around. I guess the Saints are going to pick is what we've been hearing, but they have not put their pick in yet.
And this breaks a trend of teams quickly getting that card in. I guess it's not a card anymore, but quickly making their picks.
I miss that. I miss physical stuff like that. The NHL is the last team to really do it, and I think they're doing away with it pretty soon.
So, William, what's the pick here? You have Talisi Fuaga,
and then you had
tackle out of
Latham,
Oregon State,
who's off the board.
Still on the board here. Do you think that's the play? But obviously, in your mock draft, you had 3 defensive guys off the board before this in Latu, Turner,
but
and
you
Murphy.
take a look at my top 50, I think I've been vindicated by the NFL. Maybe not with Penix, but with everybody else. Most of my top 12 has been what has come off the board.
It's the defensive guys. It's Murphy.
And I'm lower on them than the media has been. Dallas Turner was routinely mocked to Atlanta at 8. Latu continually is this guy who's propped up as maybe the edge one. I just don't see it with him. And then I have Mitchell and Arnold there as well. They're all in kind of a bunch for me as that first-tier defensive players. But like I said, I could see the Saints doing anything right now. Edge, defensive line, offensive line.
Pick is in for New Orleans.
Maybe not a wide receiver, but it could be, depending on who they like. I have a list of, teams that, or I guess visits that New Orleans went on, but they really didn't visit with anybody in this top 20 range. So I'm so surprised that they didn't trade back, but it's just not what Mickey Loomis does. I am going to plant my flag right now and say that we could see a surprise pick here, just that Mickey Loomis is so fundamentally opposed to trading back. And I'll look at their visits that they made. Guys like Braden Fisk, Marshawn Nealon, Jaden Hicks. They visited with all the quarterbacks, every single one of them.
And maybe they were a team that was hoping or thinking that they would have a guy like Bo Nix or Michael Penix available for them at 14.
But Nealon, Hicks, and Fisk are the only guys that I could see really making a top 14 pick. All the other guys are way out of the first round. But we do see a surprise almost every year, and almost one in the top 20 every year of a consensus top 40 or a player outside of the consensus top 40 picks go way too high. See it with Damon Arnett. Who's the other guy they got? Leatherwood Raiders.
To the Raiders.
Cole Strange. These are a bit later, but 14. I could see the Saints are weird. They operate the way they operate, and I have no idea who they're going to take here.
Maybe it is a guy like Marshawn Nealon who got a lot of love from NFL teams out of Western Michigan. A pass rusher, but that just feels like a hard pill to swallow considering all the other defensive talent is still on the board.
It is the style of guy they like. Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, Carl Granderson, Trey Hendrickson, those big edge rushers. And, I mean, this is a possible replacement for Cam Jordan if they go Nealon. I mean, we're completely speculating. We both have Nealon going towards the end of the first round, if in the first round at all.
And this could very well just be a tackle in Fuaga or
Yeah.
Fautanu.
We're just generating.
Here's Commissioner
We're
Goodell.
saying falsehoods. Talisa Fuaga.
And there it is, another hit for
Offensive
you,
tackle
William.
out of Oregon State. That's, like you said, a hit for me. And Fuaga, I love. I love these offensive linemen. I played center in high school. The offensive line, Jim Harbaugh shared a great quote earlier this week saying, what other position group doesn't rely on anybody else but everyone else relies on them? The offensive line. The Chargers take Joe Alt. The Titans take Fashanu, and the Jets take Fashanu. Titans take Latham. But Fuaga, for me, also, I should say, Fuaga is also the type of offensive lineman that the Saints favor. Big, physical. They play Andrus Peat at guard, who's like 6'7". They love these big guys. He's a dominant finisher in the run game. They're playing his Senior Bowl highlights right now on the NFL Network broadcast. He can get exposed in pass protection by explosive edge rushers, but once he has you locked down with those hands, you're done. I can see why, with his frame, though, that teams will move him to guard, and he is stiff. I mentioned this in the pre-draft show. I think it's an easy pick for New Orleans here at 14, and the record streak of offensive players continues, and now we will see with Indianapolis, with a lot of these offensive playmakers off the board, who they go with on defense, if they go defense.
This could be a Quinyon Mitchell spot. That's who you had mocked. I had Xavier Worthy.
And that would continue the streak as well.
We'll see here. This is a really interesting spot with so many talented defensive players still on the board. And again, we knew going into this wasn't the most talented defensive class, but I am just shocked that 14 picks in, we haven't seen one defensive guy go off the board.
I think another thing, one trade that resulted in a one-spot move, Vegas had odds on over 6 first-round trades, and obviously we still got a lot to go, but it's been pretty stable other than that quarterback surprise at 8 and 12.
One trade so far. Now, I think that the trade market is going to heat up now with some of these defensive guys slipping. Because when you get later in the draft, you have some contenders, a team like Philadelphia that has some ammo and needs help on defense that may want to get one of these guys. A team like the Detroit Lions that needs some help on defense. They're sitting at 29. Maybe you get down into the 18 to 21 range and some of these top corners and pass rushers are still on the board. Maybe that's a spot where a team like Detroit tries to jump up. We'll see.
The Saints, I mean, we talked about them taking different players other than tackle, but that was just, you could have seen that, but Ryan Ramczyk getting a little bit older, they needed a tackle. Trevor Penning has not succeeded at the NFL level, and maybe you see him move inside to guard. He's another guy that's a great run blocker, and that same sort of build, just huge, physical. But Cesar Ruiz at right guard, center Eric McCoy, Alyssa Emeka Udo, free agent signing from the Vikings, is their left guard. I could see Penning moving in there though, and it keeps their offense going. It's an old team. It's a team that continually pushes off that rebuild, and Fuaga fits in as a guy who can immediately contribute. And they'll probably play him at left tackle, as Ramczyk has been a great guy at right, which is why it's surprising that Fuaga's the pick, but he's the type of guy they like. I'm excited to see him. He's a rare kind of football player. Indianapolis has taken nearly 7 minutes to get their pick in. Could be listening on trades or just deciding among these defensive players. I mean, maybe they didn't think they could have Latu or Turner. And we all think that it's Mitchell, the corner that they would take, but maybe it's Arnold.
And maybe it's another team that's trying to trade up. I don't know. Maybe you look at it and Fautanu is the last great tackle on the board that you think can come in and make a real impact. Mims, more of a developmental piece. Maybe with this run on offensive line, someone's trying to move up to pick up Fautanu and get an impact piece on their offensive line that can plug it in and play immediately.
And they're still ticking. 2:25 to go on the clock for Indy.
But Indy and Seattle at 16 has to be licking their chops seeing
Oh, yeah.
all these great defensive players still on the board.
I think we both, Barton is a good player, Graham Barton, but I mean maybe they take him, we don't know. But I don't think they thought that they'd be guaranteed one of those top 3 edge rushers.
Byron Murphy still on the board. Pick
And
is
Byron
now
Murphy.
in. Byron Murphy is a fantastic player. We both like him a lot.
Yeah.
Having discussed
I keep
before the
forgetting that
draft.
he's even on the board. I can't believe he's still on the board. Pick is in for Indianapolis. They stick and pick. I mean, the debate has to be like, do you go Murphy? Do you go Turner? Do you go Latu? Do you go Mitchell, Arnold, Verse? Every single one of them still
Or
available.
maybe they try to go get. Maybe they're just in love and dead set on getting a receiver, and it's a Brian Thomas or a Xavier Worthy.
That'd be a surprise, too. Worthy would be a surprise.
That'd be a big jump for Worthy.
And also Thomas. 15, that's rich for a guy that I'm not too high on, but
Limited route
we'll
tree.
have to see.
I mean, pairing DeForest Buckner with Byron Murphy, oh boy, that is a middle of a defensive line that is going to wreak havoc on the AFC South if that's the pick for Indianapolis.
We'll take a look at my top 50. Byron Murphy, number 1 player still available. Graham Barton and Jared Verse. But obviously other outlets have Arnold, Turner, Mitchell, Latu maybe higher than them. But I think there's a clear teardrop outside of that top 20 because then you get into the wide receivers, the more developmental players. I have Jackson Powers Johnson very high. I think he's ready to contribute right now. But after 2021, it's guys that you're betting on. And I think Indianapolis is in a spot where they got to take a surefire guy. I'm not sure this is going to be a bet. I think it'll just be among the remaining star players who are ready to contribute right now who it's going to be.
Well, they think they hit on quarterback. They've got the hard part figured out. Now you just got to get the pieces around them.
Latu.
And there's Latu off the board.
And I think that's what they were talking over because they probably did not expect Latu to be there at 15. And I never saw Latu as a guy that Indianapolis was going to take really in any mock draft. I stuck with the consensus pick that was Quinyon Mitchell, but Latu falls, and Indianapolis ends up with him. Now, he started his career at the University of Washington, had a dangerous neck injury that actually caused him to medically retire, but he transferred to UCLA, and apparently NFL teams had cleared that medical issue as kind of a freak accident, didn't think that it would come up again, and he was firmly in that top 20, maybe even top 10 consideration. My notes on him: he's always churning, often winning, but I think he's got okay hand usage. A lot of people say he's a really technical rusher. I'm not sure that it's there yet. He's not explosive. His relative athletic score was down in the explosion department. I just flashed my top 50 again. He was the lowest ranked edge out of that top 20. He was dominated by Talisa Fuaga, who was just picked before him.
But he was the most productive guy in college this past season.
A lot of people call him Baby Hutch. He's got great sacks, great sack numbers and tackle for loss numbers, but I just didn't see it on tape that he was that kind of impact guy that Aiden Hutchinson was at Michigan and continues to be in the NFL. And we'll pull up, as that is the first defensive lineman edge drafted. Latu, 13 sacks, 21.5 tackles for loss. Incredibly productive at UCLA. UCLA Bruin team that became much more physical than people thought they would be under head coach Chip Kelly, but Latu is a part of that.
And when you look at those top pass rushers, these are specifically edge guys that are still on the board. Byron Murphy, fantastic prospect, but not included in this particular graphic just because of his position. But Latu, the most productive of the group. Dallas Turner, maybe the most physical tools. Jared Verse, a little bit in between, a little bit older, but a guy that I'm a little surprised is still on the board. I think he will for sure be off the board in the next 4 or 5 picks.
And it's surprising that Latu is the first defensive player off the board. You would have made some good money if you bet on that. I did not place any draft bets. I've been clean off FanDuel for a long time.
I'm doing pretty good, I'll say that.
But I like to keep up with it. So these are the edge rushers left for Seattle, and now they have their pick of the litter. I think Jared Verse fits them very well. Not so sure about Dallas Turner. I'm not sure that's the guy they like. Jared Verse reminds me of when they took L.J. Collier. Collier's career didn't pan out well. He's more of a tweener between defensive tackle and end, but Verse is so powerful. I'd love that. Kelin and I, well, Kelin used to have Graham Barton. I have Graham Barton as the pick to Seattle. I'm not sure I see that happening, but who knows? Seattle's so weird. They could trade out, too. Kelin has Quinyon Mitchell falling into the Seahawks' lap at 16. And then again, Byron Murphy, I think. For me, that'd be the pick. I have him at 8 on my big board.
With him still on the board,
He's
I don't
the
know
best
how you
player
can go away
available.
from him.
He would be so nasty in that Seattle defense with Mike McDonald now as their head coach. He's a souped-up version of Kris Jenkins.
Oh, my goodness.
He's a little smaller, but he's so much more explosive and powerful that he'd be such a great fit there.
And I don't think he'd get past Jacksonville at 17 if he doesn't go here. I mean, these guys are going to start to come off the board. I think it's a matter of time before you see Mitchell, Murphy in particular. We've seen that first initial run on linemen. Now you're to that next tier of guys. Fautanu, Mims, Barton, Guyton, even kind of after them. I think we're going to see some defensive talent come off the board before we get to that next tier of tackles, because after those top 3 receivers, there's a real drop-off.
Yep.
In that next range, you're looking at Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr., Adonai Mitchell, that kind of range of receiver talent.
2021 saw the most offensive players picked to open a draft at 7. Previous high was 6 in 1999. It's been doubled tonight. 14 offensive players off the board first before Latu. Doubles the previous record.
Wild stuff.
And 6 quarterbacks in the top 12, also a record. Crazy night of fun. Seattle's pick is in. We'll wait for it as NFL Network goes to commercial. And the first half of the first round of the NFL draft almost wrapped up.
All right, William, so we're almost halfway done. Let's revisit our mock drafts and see how we've done so far. We'll start with you.
We both got the first 6 picks correct. And then Tennessee, Atlanta, and Chicago, we slip up. We both had we had the same players. You had a different player with Chicago, Fashanu. We both had Bowers to the Jets, but they take Fashanu. And McCarthy goes to the Vikings, although they trade up to 10. But we count that as matching a player to a team. Denver surprisingly takes Nix at 12. We both had Latu. Vegas passes up on Latham, who was taken by Tennessee. You had Byron Murphy, who's still on the board. And you had Latham go to 14 with the Saints. He was off the board. I had Fuaga at 14 in New Orleans. And then Latu goes at 15 to Indianapolis. Neither of us had him there, as we both had him taken at 12. And, I mean, other than the quarterbacks, there hasn't been like a mock draft breaking thing. There's no players like later in the first round that we're out on. But still so surprised that those 2 guys went as early as they did.
You had 3 defensive players in the top 14. I also had 3 defensive players in the first 14. The same 3, just in a different.
Yeah. And I don't think I
order.
would have picked Latu to be the first one off.
I
That's
wouldn't have
crazy.
either.
Man.
I thought Murphy was the sharp pick to be the first defensive player off the board.
And you moved Turner, didn't you?
I
You him
had
at 18.
Turner at 19 to the Rams.
Yeah.
And I made some changes, and I got
That's-
caught up in the buzz to
I
Atlanta.
can see that. I mean, that wasn't buzz. That was like with a hammer. Like that
Yeah.
guy was going 8, or at least top 10. I mean, Chicago was speculated as well to be interested in him.
I couldn't stick with it. I wish I did. I would have looked real smart. But I certainly did not have Penix that go into Atlanta at 8.
I don't know how many people did. I mean, anytime that I saw those quarterbacks in the first round, or at least that high, I was like, all right, you're farming for clicks,
Yeah.
or like it's just you're pumping out these mock drafts and you got to change something
it up.
Atlanta, I got to keep saying it, like dumb, stupid.
Well, I mean, only time will tell, but on the surface, that is a head scratcher for sure.
Like, I get you love a guy, but situationally, I'm a BPA kind of guy. Well, first of all, I don't know how you have Michael Penix Jr.
Graded that highly.
Above so many other players. But I get taking a quarterback that high, but not a 24-year-old when you have a guy who just got a lot of money.
6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks.
Man. Pick is in for Seattle. They're going to the stage with something special, it looks like. Almost halfway through this draft. We gotta get another surprise like Penix. That energized us. I'll probably have to go get a bottle of water in a minute and a cookie or something. We got the hospitality right over here.
Oh, yeah.
We're not Scott Hansen. We can't last that long without some sort of break.
J.J. McCarthy, the one Wolverine to go so far, lands in Minnesota. Ideal landing spot for him.
And he'll probably be the only Wolverine I would suspect to go in the first round.
I'd agree with that.
Junior Colson could sneak in. Would be a surprise if somebody like Roman Wilson or Kris Jenkins snuck in as well. But probably only J.J.
And so the Seattle pick is in. William has Graham Barton, the offensive lineman from Duke, mocked. I have Quinyon Mitchell. Both players still on the board.
Byron Murphy, easy pick. The highest ranked player left on my board at number 8 goes to Seattle, and we talked about it in that Mike McDonald defense. He's a souped-up version of me, of Kris Jenkins, and he's going to do some nasty work in Seattle.
That is a slam dunk pick.
I'm
for
surprised
Seattle.
it took them that long. They must have been thinking about trading down. They do trade down often, but that is an amazing pick. Byron Murphy, I don't actually have him listed as an OKG, but he's become an OKG and our kind of guy. I mentioned this in the pre-draft show. You can feel the weight of his hands on tape. He is an absolute load. You can see how he pushes people off the line of scrimmage. He's got excellent vision against the run and the pass. He knows when to rush. He knows when to sit and fill gaps in the run game. He's not the quickest off the line, and he struggles to finish plays when he does get in the backfield, but there's a lot of defensive tackles that don't either. He's got this high motor, though, that is endless, and I love this pick for Seattle. I can't say more about how much I love it. I love Byron Murphy.
We're in lockstep on this one. I think this is a home run pick for the Seattle Seahawks.
You don't go anywhere else but Byron Murphy, the best player left on the board.
To get him at 16, best player available on the board, and whoa, we have a trade here to announce. Minnesota moving up to 17.
Okay.
Jacksonville a lot of people probably thought this was a huge win for them as well, landing potentially Quinyon Mitchell. All of a sudden, they're moving down, and Minnesota moving up from 23. This is the second time they've moved up in this draft, moved up one pick from 11 to 10 to select J.J. McCarthy, now jumping up from 23 to 17.
Minnesota making the only 2 trades. Kind of surprising to me.
And we knew they were going to be active tonight. Just did not expect that
What is the details?
those would be separate trades.
I can't see that far. What is it? 5th rounder and some future stuff. I mentioned earlier, Minnesota does not have their 2nd round pick this season. They sacrificed that to go up to 23, and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, their general manager, he's known to move her up and down the board. And the Vikings certainly, trying to find a player that's still been left on the board for a while, most likely.
Looking for an impact player. I'm going to guess defense.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought as soon as they traded up, it would be defense. I just didn't know which player it would be. I had them taking an edge rusher, and it's Dallas Turner.
And so we both had them mocked getting edge guys. You had Jared Verse at 23. I had Chop Robinson out of Penn State. Instead, they move up to get many people's top edge in the class, and it's Dallas Turner out of Alabama, somebody we got to see live in the Rose Bowl. He's a guy that wrecked games at the college level, not quite as good as Will Anderson, his running mate last year on the edge at Alabama, but really, really good player that, while a little bit raw, William has all the tools to be a fantastic pass rusher at the NFL level. And add some juice to a Minnesota defense that really does not have much.
I like Dallas Turner. I love how athletic he is. He is a clear as day athlete, but he needs work as a football player. He does not have great hand usage. It's a lot of bull rushes, a lot of speed rushes. He still succeeds. He can refine his game in Minnesota. And I talked about Jared Verse possibly being that Daniil Hunter replacement. Dallas Turner is really just as good. Jared Verse, my number 1 edge rusher, still on the board. 2 go before him. And the other thing about Turner, he doesn't have that relentless, inevitable motor that you want to see from an edge rusher, like I saw on tape from Jared Verse, or like we just saw Byron Murphy go off the board. That's the reason I had him at edge 2. I think his athletic ability is more than Laiatu Latu, which is why I had Latu 3. And against Michigan was kind of able to game plan Turner out of the game, but we're seeing a clip where he's just still so good in the run game, so physical, and that's a heck of a draft for Minnesota to not give up anything for their quarterback, really, and come up and not give up much.
To not give up any future firsts and come away with Dallas Turner and J.J. McCarthy is a pretty nice haul.
Edge rusher of the future and a quarterback of the future. 2 out of 3 of the most important positions on the field, the other being offensive tackle.
Viking fans have to be enthusiastic about their start to the night.
And let's talk a little bit about Jacksonville moving down to 23. I think they see so many players still on the board with those 2 quarterbacks taken. It affords them some time to move back and recoup some draft capital. I have them taking Amarius Mims, and that would be a bit of a reach at 17. And I'm not sure he'll still be there at 23 now, but there's a lot of players that they could use on the board.
You're absolutely right. Jared Verse, a guy that maybe they hope gets to them at 23, but also they've been in on a lot of these corners as well. And we've yet to see a cornerback go off the board. 18 with Cincinnati's a spot where we could see Quinyon Mitchell go. But Jacksonville visited with a handful of these edge guys, Jared Verse being one of them. But the DB is definitely a spot as well to look out with Jacksonville.
Now, DBs also with Cincinnati. I think with those top offensive linemen off the board, Fuaga, Fashanu, Latham, Alt, I think they could go Fautanu or Barton, but I sneakily think they go for Terrion Arnold, cornerback out of Alabama. That's my prediction. But I could see them going with Jared Verse. Maybe a wide receiver with the buzz on T. Higgins moving on after the season. Brian
He
Thomas Jr.
requested
still
a trade
available.
officially, as did Trey Hendrickson. So maybe the reason that Minnesota felt the need to jump up to 17 is because Cincinnati had their eyes on Dallas Turner.
And I think we could see any sorts of moves from Cincinnati here. I don't foresee a trade out, even though they've let 7 minutes go off their clock. I just think that there are so many talented players still on the board.
Cincinnati visited with Johnny Newton, but that would be a little rich.
That's a sneaky pick for me, though. I had that earlier in the cycle.
Jackson Powers Johnson, another guy that may be a little early, but a guy that
Mims there as
Cincinnati
well.
that fills a need and somebody that Cincinnati met with in the pre-draft process.
And they did take Billy Price. They still have that same regime. The Bengals are weird in that their owner is kind of their general manager, and they have a very small front office and scouting staff. Duke Tobin is the de facto GM in Cincinnati and has been since 1999. So this is a very stable regime. Obviously, Marvin Lewis was their head coach for a long part of that. And the book is out on how to predict Cincinnati. They love physical players. They love kind of old school football players. And they like production in college, I'd say. So I would see somebody, maybe not Mims, but somebody like Johnny Newton or Terrion Arnold or Quinyon Mitchell as potential picks here for Cincinnati.
You had Terrion Arnold mock there, who's still on the board. I had Fuaga, who is off the board.
And you look at this roster, with T. Higgins wanting to be traded, I think you do have a slot for a wide receiver. The guys after them aren't great. Do like Charlie Jones a lot. I'm not sure it's offensive line. They have Trent Brown and Orlando Brown as their tackles, and they haven't shown a desire to take guards early. Ted Karras at center. Not taking a running back, not taking a tight end. And I think it could be edge rusher or cornerback. Those seem to be the positions for me that make the most sense with the defensive talent on the board. And if they're not trading back, I wouldn't see something like a linebacker. That'd be bad positional value at 18. But we'll just have to see.
T. Higgins got the franchise tag. Him and Ted Hendrickson both requested trades just a couple of days before the draft. Obviously, Cincinnati does not have to accommodate that. But interesting direction for the Bengals here. Again, another team that is more than set at the quarterback department, has plenty of cornerstone pieces at wide receiver and in Jamar Chase. Some key defensive pieces as well, but shoring up that offensive line, adding depth to that secondary in a conference where you're going to have to face the Miami Dolphins, you're going to have to face the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Adding depth to the back end of your defense is always a positive.
Pick is in for Cincinnati. We await the announcement, and it could go any which way. You see how the boards shook out so far tonight? We went 14 straight offensive players and 3 straight on defense. And in my opinion, we will see another defensive player selected here at 18, barring something unforeseen from the Cincinnati Bengals, which I'm not sure is likely. They tend to stick to consensus, I think, with their picks.
Commissioner making his way out to the stage.
Marius Mims.
Wow.
Goes 18 to Cincinnati, a player that I really didn't think fit there. I had him going inside of the top 20. I had him going 17 to Jacksonville, and they trade out, so Cincinnati able to select Mims. He slots right in for them at tackle of the future. I think that's the big deal. They have Orlando Brown Jr. and Trent Brown right now. Marius Mims only started 9 games in college, and he's going to be a developmental project. He'll probably sit the whole season. And this is surprising to me because the Cincinnati Bengals are trying to chase down Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, and you take a player in the first round that isn't going to be there on day one. That's a bit surprising to me.
And the Rams on the clock for the first time in forever.
Yeah.
I believe it's the first time Sean
Since 2017,
McVay
a first-round pick, they haven't had one.
has been, since Sean McVay's been there, that they've had a first-round pick. Obviously trading a number of those for Matthew Stafford and Jalen Ramsey, which led to a Super Bowl championship ring. Obviously a decision that Rams fans and the Rams front office would make over and over again. Troy Fautanu
is who we both have. One of our rare similar
down the board
picks in the second half of the first round. When you check the mock drafts, you can see as we flip them, it's Fautanu and Nealon, the only picks, or I guess Fisk as well towards the end, that we have the same. And we'll see what LA does here. I mean, there was some buzz on defensive players, but I think, or I don't have that ready yet, excuse me. I think that Sean McVay is their head coach, and he's there to stay, and they want some offensive help. And I mentioned before, they're not afraid of taking an older player. Fautanu is 24. We could see, though, them taking anybody else like Barton. But Fautanu they had visited with, and it seems like they're interested in him. Has that Pacific Coast connection. And he's the next available offensive tackle along with Graham Barton right now. And I think that's where they go.
One of the few guys they visited with is Fautanu during the pre-draft process. And another guy name to keep an eye on here, Jared Verse, if they do want to go edge. Verse, the top guy on the board pretty clearly at this point. Your number one guy overall, William, and with Latu and Turner off the board, he's a cut above the next tier of Chop Robinson, Marshawn Nealon, Darius Robinson.
And they do need some help in the pass rush with the retirement of Aaron Donald. They have Byron Young, who had a good season. They have Michael Hecht. Kobe Turner on the inside, but DeJuan Johnson at defensive end, 7th-round pick last season, sticks out as a guy that they could serve to move on from. Rob Havenstein has been around since 2015 at right tackle for the Rams. They signed Jonah Jackson in the offseason. Steve Avila was a 2nd-round pick last year. Kevin Dotson was a very underrated trade that they made with Pittsburgh, who turned out to be an all-pro caliber guard. And then Alaric Jackson at left tackle, I think, is the spot where they could add an offensive lineman to replace him. But Fautanu is 6'3", and I wouldn't consider him to be a left tackle. I mean, he could play there this season. I don't know about the fit right now. I mean, maybe they flip Havenstein over there. I don't know. We'll see.
And the NFL Network, Rich Eisen.
Since 2016.
Jared Goff, the last time the Rams picked in the first round, it was Jared Goff, number 1. A little less glamorous this time. It's at 19.
And Les Snead was always one to say, F them picks. That's what got them the Super Bowl. But they got to reset. They need these high draft picks right now.
Again, William and I both with Troy Fautanu, the tackle out of Washington, mocked here. As each player goes off the board, fewer and fewer picks have a chance of being right, but one of the few ones that we're together on. And
We're both tied at 8 right now. 8 correct picks. Or no, I have 8, you have 7. So this is a potential tiebreaker here. Well, I guess not. You could tie me, or I could jump ahead by 2.
what?
I'm all over
We
the
both
place. We
have
both did the
Fautanu.
same pick. My bad. I don't know. I'm losing it. I got to go get water in a minute after this pick, I think. The Steelers will be boring and take an offensive lineman.
Probably.
Probably Barton, which is who I had for a long time, but then I switched it because that was a consensus pick. That's why this is so fun, though. You never...
All the corners still
You
on the
never
board.
know.
Maybe the Rams make a surprise move there. Quinyon Mitchell still there is something that I don't think many people would have thought sitting at 19.
They did pick up Tre'Davious White from Buffalo, but his athleticism has kind of been zapped with 2 ACL injuries. They have Darius Williams as well, but those are 2 older corners, so I could see that, Kellen, with those 2 guys still on the board.
Here comes the commissioner to make the pick.
Jared
And it is Verse.
That's my number 1 edge rusher, now off the board to the Rams. Fills that void in the pass rush left by Aaron Donald. And Verse, to me, ranking at number 15 on my top 50. I have him as an OKG, our kind of guy. He's relentlessly physical, destroys opposing offensive tackles with his rush. He can use speed off the edge as well. He's determined to finish every play, and he continued to grow into the FBS. As the season went on. He was stopped a bit against LSU, but I saw his games late against Duke, against Louisville later in the season, and he just ratcheted it up after transferring in from Albany in the FCS ranks, the Great Danes.
And so the Rams land themselves a edge threat from Florida State, a really productive guy at the college level.
No.
With their first round pick in a long time. Jared Goff's almost up for another contract, almost up for his 3rd NFL contract. And
Back-to-back first-round picks with Jared's.
yes, that's
And it's
true.
7 years apart. All right, I'm going to take a break. I'll get some water. I'll be back, though. Pick 20, Steelers on the clock. Probably taking an offensive lineman.
William will step away. I'll stick around with you. It's been a ton of fun being here in Detroit. If you're still listening in, let us know any questions you have regarding the draft so far. Future picks coming up. We'll see what we can do to answer as a couple of college kids that just try to stay plugged into as much as we can with this. Big trends so far tonight, obviously. 14 straight offensive players go off the board, beginning with Caleb Williams, ending with Talisi Fuaga. And then it's Liatu Latu, Byron Murphy, Dallas Turner, Amarius Mims, and Jared Verse. So 4 of the next 5 defensive pieces. All of them coming on the defensive line, whether they be pass rushers or interior defensive linemen. 6 quarterbacks go in the first 12 picks, and quickly following that, 4 pass rushers to get after the quarterback. It's clear what the priorities are for teams. But I don't think anybody had 6 QBs in the first 12 picks on their bingo cards tonight. The line was set at 4.5 first-round quarterbacks, and that was smashed within the first half of tonight. Definitely not expecting to see another quarterback selected in this first round. That would be very surprising. Again, this is WCBN Sports coverage of NFL Draft Night 1 from Detroit, Michigan. My name's Kelin Flynn. William Gregory is off grabbing a bottle of water. And we're going to try to power through tonight as best we can. We've got 12 picks to go. Pittsburgh Steelers on the clock. And some of the top prospects that Pittsburgh has met with so far in this process. We'll let you know right now. Darius Robinson, pass rusher, still on the board. Somebody that Pittsburgh has been linked to throughout this process. Adonai Mitchell, the receiver out of Texas. Pittsburgh met with him in a need as well for the Steelers that always drafts receiver well, but they don't traditionally do it in the first round. Troy Franklin out of Oregon, another receiver they met with, not necessarily somebody expected to go tonight. Cooper DeJean, the defensive back out of Iowa, the Swiss Army knife, somebody that I got a chance to see live in Iowa City last year when the Wolverines played at Kinnick Stadium. DeJean is a very athletic defensive back. Some question his ability to play on the outside at the next level. I know William sees him more as a nickel corner, perhaps a safety at the NFL level, but a guy that can make a real impact in the return game as well. Was a Swiss Army knife for the Hawkeyes. Suffered a broken tibia, I believe, and was out the second half of the season for Iowa this year, but expected to be fully good to go come week 1 of the NFL season. Is the Jean. Maybe somebody we see come off the board here. Lad McConkey, another receiver out of Georgia they met with. Nate Wiggins, the cornerback out of Clemson, is another player that Pittsburgh was in connection with throughout this process. Wiggins is big and he can fly out of Clemson. More of a prototypical outside defensive back. We saw Pittsburgh land Porter last draft in the second round. But at this point, the tackles getting thin. The last first-round level tackle still on the board. Fautanu.
Guyton.
Tyler Guyton still there. And
Suamataia.
Kingsley Suamataia. Those are probably the last couple guys.
All right, we'll bring in the broadcaster cam here. It's like a football game halftime. They had trail mix, they got peanut butter, they got apple slices, and they got Smucker's Uncrustables for us. I haven't had an Uncrustable in probably like 10 years. But guess what?
Cracking it open.
Oh. Usually I had them frozen. I broke a tooth once trying to bite into a frozen Uncrustable.
Steelers pick is in. William digging into his Uncrustable.
I like that.
Commissioner Goodell's making his way out to the stage. William.
A little bit of water, too.
Both of us had players that have already been picked, mocked to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I should have stuck with Barton, but had Seattle taking him. I didn't foresee these edge rushers sticking around like they did, and Murphy.
So we'll see what the Pittsburgh Steelers do here. Mike Tomlin and company made some changes this offseason, acquiring Russell Wilson and Justin Fields via trade. Or excuse me, Wilson was cut and then signed by the Steelers, but the trade for Fields, they've moved on from Kenny Pickett. as Cameron Hayward announces the pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner and a longtime mainstay on that Pittsburgh defensive line.
Brother of Connor Hayward, one of my favorite players to come out of Michigan State University.
And here's the Pittsburgh pick. And it is Fautanu.
So, the last tackle we got left is Barton Fautanu, the best available consensus tackle on the board. Pittsburgh gets him. I had Fashanu falling to him, but they take a different tackle whose name starts with F.A. And Fautanu, for me, comes in on my big board. I dropped him down a bit, but he's at 21, so an even pick here for Pittsburgh at pick number 20. We both had Fautanu going to L.A., but he goes one spot later at 20 to the Steelers. He's explosive for his side. Explosive for his size, if still a bit small. He is 6'3". He's fundamentally perfect, in my opinion, but he lacks that pop that you want from a devastating offensive lineman. And he's just in that tweener spot between tackle and guard. I really like him, but his size, his age knocks him down a few pegs for me. Now, for the Steelers, how he fits on that offensive line, I think this is a team that wants to reassert themselves as a physical football team. For such a long time, they had one of the top offensive lines in the NFL. It took a step back over the past few years. But Fautanu fits right in here, I think, at left tackle to replace Dan Moore Jr. across from Broderick Jones, who was their first-round pick a year ago. Maybe Jones goes to left and Fautanu comes into right. But even the interior of that offensive line could see an upgrade. They have James Daniels, Nate Herbig, Isaac Suamalo, who's an older player. But offensive line definitely a need. That's why it was such a likely pick for the Steelers. I think Vegas had it at minus 400 at some point that they were going to take an offensive lineman. So Russell Wilson gets a guy to help him out.
So now it's at pick 21, the Miami Dolphins on the clock.
And this is when the draft starts to get really fun. We still have a lot of these guys in our mock draft still available. The top 20 kind of went the way we thought, with the exception of the quarterbacks. But it's now where, like I said, in my top 50, I had a kind of clear-cut top 20 and then a teardrop. We've reached the teardrop here. And 21 to 32 is always my favorite part of the NFL draft because that's when teams start to take some weird swings on players. And with that teardrop, big boards kind of change. Excuse me. And I'm very excited to see what Miami does here. I have them taking Nate Wiggins. Kellen's got him with Barton, who's still there. That's a perfect fit for them. I could see them going with Barton. I'd be surprised if they didn't. He's the last remaining offensive lineman we have here on our top 6.
And he just feels like a good fit for them on the interior of that offensive line. A team that wants to be able to create explosive plays in both the passing game and the ground game. And William, talking as Lions fans now, and as with our Lions hats on, we're 20 picks in, and we haven't seen a single cornerback go off the board. Cornerback, one of the top, if not the top need for the Lions coming into this draft, and it has broken beautifully for them so far. Miami could go corner here at 21. This is where you could see a run on corners here, though. Miami could. Philadelphia definitely could. Now Jacksonville at 23 certainly could go corner. Green Bay at 25, Tampa at 26.
I have Miami taking Nate Wiggins, but that was with Arnold and Mitchell coming off in the top 20. They did not. They're all available to Miami. They could take Barton. I think with the edge rushers gone, it's corner or it's offensive line here for the Dolphins.
But for Miami, this is, what do you value here? Are you trying to really dominate more up front offensively, be more physical? In that case, it's Graham Barton all the way.
I think defensively they may need some juice. Johnny Newton, another player that could go here at 21. I could see that happening.
Completely
as well.
agree. Find the replacement for Christian Wilkins, who's out in the desert now in Las Vegas.
I still keep wanting to call it Oakland. I don't know why. I didn't have this problem with the Chargers. I said that I wanted to keep calling them the San Diego Chargers, but that fell away in L.A. But I like slip of my brain. I still keep calling them the Oakland Raiders. Kelin looking at a picture his mom sent him. We've been doing this for what, 3 hours now?
Just about.
Let's check.
2:40.
Brother.
We're having some fun.
I mean, we'd be watching it. I think, what did we watch last year at my apartment? I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Two
did.
of us, because we had some people for like the first half, and then we just stuck around for the second half of the first round.
Because we're the real degenerates.
Yeah.
And Miami has made their pick. They're sticking and picking. And now the Philadelphia Eagles on the clock.
This pick I can update the real draft order graphic. Have to do it by hand, folks.
And the Dolphins here, William, shouldn't impact Philly's decision too much. I think the Eagles pretty clearly can have a guy in Guyton that they could go after for the offensive line, or one of Quinyon Mitchell or Terrion Arnold, or someone like a Nate Wiggins if they so desire at defensive back. Those are probably the two primary needs for the Eagles.
Wiggins is just a guy they were interested in, and like I said, it was with Mitchell and Arnold off the board. Maybe they like Wiggins. He's a really fast, fluid corner. He's the type of athlete that Miami looks for. He's a little lighter and more slight, but I think it's got to be defensive line or corner or offensive line. I mean, those are the strengths of this draft. But
and here's the commissioner to make the pick. Wow.
Chop Robinson. Whoa. That is a jump. Kelin and I, let's see it, both had him. I had him at 27 to Arizona. Kelin had him 23 to Minnesota, so fairly close. But Robinson, kind of our next edge up. We didn't think that they would go there. It's kind of a teardrop between the top three guys, but Chop is so fast. Of course the Dolphins love him.
I was going to say, he fits Miami. They're all about speed, and he is one of the fastest defensive linemen in this draft. We talked about it during the pre-draft show. He completely wrecked the game against Michigan because Michigan flat out could not block him. Chop Robinson forced Michigan to run the football almost every play in that second half, and he has such immense speed off the edge. Really, really tough for offensive linemen to deal with. But at the NFL level, the question is, does he have enough speed for that to continue to dominate, or is he going to need to get a little more powerful and fine-tune some of those pass rush moves to create pressure on the quarterback against NFL offensive linemen?
I'll get into my my notes here about Chop in a second. I'm updating this real draft order graphic. Real draft order. Up to 21. Chop Robinson to the Dolphins. Let's check my notes on Chop. Obviously, I saw him in state college against Michigan. He was giving the business to frickin' Carson Barnhart. I felt bad for Carson Barnhart, the way that Chop was just getting right around him. He's extremely raw, but he is freakishly athletic. Struggles in the run game as an undersized edge rusher. Flashes that strength. But, of course, Miami loves speed. And now with Jalen Phillips, who's coming off another injury, Bradley Chubb, and Chop Robinson, I think Phillips and Chubb are bigger bodies that Chop Robinson can kind of come in on third down and pin back his ears and go to work on the quarterback. That's a good pick. And now the Eagles on the clock here at 22. This is a team, Howie Roseman loves to be aggressive and trade up, but Terrion Arnold and Quinyon Mitchell have fallen right into his lap. He did not have to trade up, but they've burned a lot of time off this clock. Who knows what they're going to do
We'll
here.
see. Philly potentially fielding some calls here, again, in what is a very deep cornerback class. We've talked about it. Plenty of guys that many experts had mocked going in the first round. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Nate Wiggins, Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Enos Rakestraw had some buzz early in the process. TJ Tampa, another guy that was getting some buzz. But really 5 solid first-round caliber corners in this draft, and we haven't seen any go off the board, and we're all the way through pick 21 now. Philly has a need at corner, and with about 90 seconds left on the clock, they're still yet to make a pick.
And you never know what this is, if it's the front office trying to make the decision between the players that are left. Maybe it's between Mitchell and Arnold, but also they could.
But that feels like a discussion you've had already.
Yeah.
You're not all of a sudden here on Thursday night and you haven't decided between those two guys yet.
We'll see. I mean, looks like they're going to stick and pick. I have them taking Tyler Guyton. You have them taking Terrion Arnold, which was the buzz that they'd trade up for him. And we will have to see. They need corner. Darius Slay and James Bradbury are getting up there. And you bring back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to play in the nickel. Keely Ringo was a 4th-round pick last year. Eli Ricks also there. But I think an influx of youth. Avonte Maddox entering his 7th season in the NFL. It's corner for me, but
Picks in from Philly.
Lane Johnson, Hall of Fame right tackle, is going to be 34 next season. Probably going to retire.
That's obviously a spot that they could go to, but Philly with they love to be ahead of the curve, especially on the offensive line. That's a staple they've had under Howie Roseman, is keeping that offensive line locked and loaded and fresh with talent.
And, could they go Barton? He's available.
Cooper DeJean, if we're going corner, they met with him. Him and Arnold were the two guys that they had meetings with. If it's not Arnold, that would really surprise me. He just feels like a guy that NFL teams would be all over. I'm really surprised he's still on the board here.
Yeah. I take a look at my top 50. I have Terrion Arnold as my third-ranked defensive player behind Murphy and Verse. I have him ranked higher than Quinyon Mitchell. I really like him. He's an SEC corner compared to a MAC corner. Quinyon Mitchell could have all the ball production he wanted, but he's still playing at Toledo.
And he's quick. He can fly, too, but Mitchell ran the fastest 40-yard dash, I believe, of any of the corners at the Combine. And William Arnold, your second-best player available, right behind Graham Barton. He's somebody that Philly could look to here.
We're waiting on it still.
Awaiting the commissioner.
I want to see a bomb here. I want to see us get energized.
Well, looking at some other players Philly's met with, I'm really not sure what that bomb would be. Verse is off the board. It's Guyton, DeJean, and Arnold are the other three guys that they showed interest in the pre-draft process.
Commissioner Goodell taking his sweet time to get up there with the chorus of boos.
Jackson Powers Johnson, guy you're really in on, William?
I'd be upset. I want him to be a Detroit football Lion.
Jordan Morgan potentially at tackle if it's not Guyton. You see linebacker here? I don't.
No. They walked into Kobe Dean in the 3rd round.
Commissioner taking a sweet time promoting the Brazil game between Green Bay and Philadelphia.
Let's take a look at a WCBN competition going on right now.
Jake Handler's been absolutely murdering that mock draft.
Where's he at? Yeah. He's been hitting the later stuff.
And Jordan Mailata is going to announce the pick from Australia.
Ooh, that's why they're taking so long. They got to get it to him. Former rugby player Jordan Mailata.
And it's
Mitchell.
Quinyon Mitchell.
So he is the first corner off the board. Sigh of relief from me. I'm still beating Kelin in the mock draft competition. He didn't get Arnold. But
I really thought Arnold would be their guy there.
Jacksonville. Trade back, and I think you still have your whole selection ahead of you. But Trent Baalke in his 15 years as a general manager has never taken a cornerback in the first round.
This feels a little rich for receiver. I know they're back down to 23 and they want to get receiver there. I just don't believe Brian Thomas is that guy to be the #1 receiver for your team. Feels early for Mitchell or Worthy.
I can see Barton. Barton's falling farther than I thought he would. I'm very high on him. He's just so athletic. But I think Jacksonville's got a lot that they could do here.
Michael Hall Jr. out of Ohio State, somebody they met with
in
the pre-draft process. Might surprise some people, but maybe that's the reason they traded down is they knew he'd still be there. They'll pick up some extra draft capital and get a guy they're really into. Corner, the popular pick for Jacksonville, and had that's what makes me think it's not corner here, because they had their chance to take any of the corners at 17 and opted to trade down, which makes me think that it's not corner. I can't imagine they were confident that they could move back about 6 picks and still have all of their guys be there, especially with Philly sitting at 22. To me, this feels like this one might be a curveball.
Sorry, I'm finishing my Uncrustable.
We'll see, though.
That's why I took the camera off. I couldn't have you all seeing my eating face. I agree. If they had the selection of the 3 top corners, 3 to me, I think Wiggins is good. I could see something weird from Trent Baalke here, to be honest. I could see an outside-the-box pick. We haven't seen one since Penix, and I guess Nick's was too, but when one quarterback's taken, you expect the other one. Can you believe that Michael Penix Jr. is the 8th overall pick in this draft?
I cannot. I cannot. I know we're going to keep talking about it, but
I thought he was. To me, I'm not touching him until the 3rd round. He's Hendon Hooker to me. Hendon Hooker had a better body of work in college, less injuries, a better player. I don't get it. But Jacksonville, I could see them doing a Michael Hall Jr. thing. Wide receiver, I could see a lot from Trent Baalke.
I'm not sure what the receiver pick is here. I don't know that you're loving any of these guys that are on the board still. Brian Thomas Jr. just does not do it for me.
Yeah,
he's pretty raw. I don't love him as a route runner.
But I'm just thinking, like, Trent Baalke's the guy that took Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson. And Sauce Gardner. So, like, I could just see something weird.
Jacksonville's pick is in. It didn't take them that long.
got some sort of reaction. We're not spoiling the picks right now.
I think the top 3 guys you're looking at here are Terrion Arnold, one of the interior offensive linemen maybe, and then maybe the wild card's Michael Hall Jr. out of Ohio State, the interior defensive lineman.
I thought about putting him in there. I just couldn't pull the trigger on it.
I was the same way. I was too scared to.
And I had him at 17 taking Mims. I felt like that was a...
Well, that's true. Doing that at 17
That's an
versus
aggressive
23
pick.
feels a lot different.
Broadcaster cam.
Jacksonville, they've got their quarterback now. Losing Calvin Ridley over the offseason. Christian Kirk, the wide receiver, 1 there.
Well, they love him.
Is that something you're comfortable with going into next season? I'm not sure. Evan Engram at tight end.
Let me check.
Travis Etienne in the backfield.
Come on. I'm on frickin' Ethernet. Let me pull this up. Jaguars. Anybody. Nealon, maybe.
Xavier Legette.
Yeah.
I could
interesting.
see that.
I think they really want a defensive tackle, though. That seems what they're interested in. Maybe Brian Thomas Jr. It's only been one wide receiver ever taken by Trent Baalke in the first round while he's been a general manager. I have to pull up his name. I forgot it again. He was like the 29th pick.
And it is Brian Thomas Jr.
No, Brian Thomas Jr. A.J. Jenkins, the last wide receiver that Trent Baalke took in the first round while he was with the 49ers out of Illinois. He did not have an illustrious career, 17 catches for 223 yards, no touchdowns in his entire career as a first-round pick.
And this is a I don't love this pick. I mean,
this is the pick that Jacksonville Jaguars fans really wanted, and for them to get it while still recouping some picks, I understand if they'd be very happy.
so another receiver goes off the board, the 4th one so far. Now the top receivers left on the board are the Texas tandem of Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell, as well as Xavier Legette, Ladd McConkey out of Georgia.
And let's look at what I wrote about Brian Thomas Jr. This is exactly where I had him slotted. The 23 overall player on my big board lands at 23 to Jacksonville. I had him, though, as my wide receiver 5 below Adonai Mitchell, who might drop out of the first round due to some medical concerns. He is diabetic. And also his, people can debate his tape. But I have Thomas Jr. there at 23. He's a fluid athlete for a bigger guy. He kind of has that X-receiver body type, but he's not exactly physical. And when the physicality doesn't show up on film, I look for the speed, and the speed doesn't really pop for Brian Thomas Jr., to me at least. I mean, we're watching some tape of him. I just think that he's stuck between wanting to be Malik Neighbors and wanting to be Rome Odunze. I think he's a good player, but he's not like a hard first-round grade for me. We've exited that territory after Fa'atanu went at 21. These guys are not firm first-round grades for me from this point out. And Brian Thomas Jr., the first one off after the top 3 wide receivers. Now, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys, because they want an offensive lineman, and they have the pick of the litter. They have Graham Barton. They have Tyler Guyton.
I do not think they were expecting to have Barton still on the board here.
And they have Sua Mataya, who they took a look at earlier this week. They need somebody to replace Tyron Smith. They have Terrence Steele, who's undrafted. He's a good player at right tackle, and Tyler Smith at left tackle, who was kind of drafted as a guy who could move into guard, I could see Tyler Guyton or Graham Barton sliding in somewhere along this offensive line wherever they need them. TJ Bass is currently the left guard starter, and he was an undrafted player last season. So
I think Graham Barton's the pick here.
and he could play center too. Brock Hoffman, an undrafted free agent who's played for Cleveland and San Francisco. They need interior help, I think, and Graham Barton could do that. But maybe Jackson Powers Johnson.
Now, William, Dallas still has not put their card in yet. 2:40 to go on the clock. This feels like it could be a prime trade-up spot for a team like Detroit if they want to go get Terrion Arnold.
Yep.
Green Bay sitting there at 25 could go corner. Tampa Bay at 26 could go corner. Dallas, I think, would feel pretty comfortable that they would still have one of those offensive linemen that they like at 29. I think if you're Brad Holmes, you got to go pull the trigger and move up a couple of spots, just a couple of spots.
I mean, that's if they like him.
To get Terrion Arnold,
But
and
to
he's
me,
the guy they met with. He feels like a Detroit Lions player to me. We'll see.
I agree, but you never know.
Yeah.
With Brad Holmes. I mean, I had them taking Kool-Aid McKinstry. I didn't think Terrion Arnold would last this long. I know they love Alabama players. And this isn't a trade-up that would cost all that much, maybe like a fourth-round pick. I think Cowboys are trading is what I just heard in the room. I mean, they got 90 seconds left on the clock, so.
And this feels like a trade spot.
Yep, they're trading down from 24. I think that's an easy move for Dallas. And it is the Detroit Football Lions moving up to 24
Oh, baby.
for a possible game changer in the defensive backfield. Or any player that Brad Holmes wants. I'm still keeping the options open for my boy.
I mean, other possibilities that it could be other than Terrion Arnold. Marshawn Nealon, somebody Detroit met with. Darius Robinson. Maybe they like Kool-Aid McKinstry better than Arnold. That's always a possibility.
And they made a lot of moves. They brought in Carlton Davis and Amik Robertson. But that's depth to me. And Emmanuel Mosley didn't play very well. Kendall Vildor, Khalil Dorsey, other guys that we Khalil Dorsey's a good special teamer, but Kendall Vildor, we kind of vilified him down the stretch of the season. I feel bad for Kendall, but we don't really want to see him on the field this season.
The Honolulu Blue faithful here are going absolutely berserk at the Lions trading up.
That's give the people what they freaking want.
And if this is a cornerback here, this place will erupt.
And the draft, I mean, any Brad Holmes pick to me is a good pick. So the draft couldn't have gone better for Detroit with that guy making the moves.
And I'm curious what the total package is to move up. Lions pick is in immediately.
Well, yeah, if you're trading up, you gotta have it.
Terrion Arnold would send this place into a frenzy.
It's got to be him. I mean,
And William, did you catch what the compensation was yet to
I
move
didn't
up?
see it. I'm trying to.
And so here we see
Get
it's
this
a third-round pick, number 73 overall. Detroit gets back a 2025 seventh in the deal as well. A third, kind of steep, but
You go up and get your guy if he's your guy.
if you can get a difference maker on the perimeter, this is a Lions team that was 30 minutes of football away from the Super Bowl.
I mean, really like 5, the way that game backslid so quickly.
And a big part of some of the Lions' losses this year were cornerback play on the outside. CeeDee Lamb torched Detroit in Dallas in what was a really close game. Passes down the field, ended their season in San Francisco. You have all the playmakers you could ask for on offense. The offensive line, you want to be able to keep that strong, but if you have the chance to get a difference maker on the outside at corner, I think you got to go get them.
Christmas coming early for Lions fans. We get to see the pick earlier than we thought we would, which is very nice. We're now about to cross over 3 hours on this broadcast.
And this place is rocking. All right, William, they're really drawing this out.
Yeah.
Lions pick's been in for a couple of minutes now.
They had a guy in a luchador mask, like, with his tongue out, screaming.
So Green Bay's been on the clock for a couple of minutes now at 25.
And if we flash to the mock draft real quick, we both got him taking a corner. Cooper Jean, I have, and you have McKinstry. And that sets up well for the Lions to come up and nab whoever those teams wanted. But let's see what the pick is.
Arnold, the best player on the board per Daniel Jeremiah. Your second best player on the board, William, behind Graham Barton.
Just kind of waiting for him. It's taking a little too long. Oh, they got a whole crew.
Oh, boy.
What is that, Castek? Who's out there? Ollie Lapeer. Who are the Dragons? I don't know the other two high schools. And then King. We drove by Martin Luther King Junior High School today. It's a beautiful day in Detroit. Sorry, we're Lions fans. We're really
dialed in on this.
I'm not really thinking much about a breakdown. I need to see. Well, frickin' Roger Goodell's taking an hour to do this. Yeah. Yeah. Money in the bank. Money in the frickin' bank. Terry and Arnold coming to Detroit. Another member of the Crimson Tide. Everybody goes nuts. And the Lions are the winner tonight. I'm going to say it right now. Get your corner. I don't care about the Bears. I don't care about the Vikings. Certainly not the Falcons.
And to jump up over the division rival in Green Bay to go get this guy.
Snatch him.
Who most likely would have been going there. Oh, does that have to feel good?
I love it. I love Brad Holmes. He saved our city. But this night tonight is incredible for the city of Detroit. The Lions have never been good, and it lined up that they are great when the draft comes into town. And I don't think either of us could be happier right now as lifelong Lions fans. Terry and Arnold is exactly who we've been waiting for. Here's a real draft order with the updated trade for Terry and Arnold. Detroit moves up to 24, and I don't think either of us care that we didn't get this one right.
Nope. More than happy to get this one wrong. Terrion Arnold, 6-foot corner from Alabama, redshirt sophomore, early declaree.
And I think for Dallas, this works out very well for them, too.
I completely agree.
I think a third-round pick's more than worth it for Terrion Arnold. I mean, maybe not to jump up to 24, but I bet the offers were there. I think Green Bay probably wanted in.
I agree.
Tampa maybe. Anybody else who wanted a corner. And Detroit just outbids them and gets their guy. But Dallas gets to move back. I'm sure they like a lot of the offensive linemen still left on the board. You have to think, I mean, there's only 4 picks till they pick next, and you have Barton, Guyton, Sua, Mattia up there. One of them's got to get to you, maybe 2. And if you don't really have them really clearly organized, you're fine to move down that far.
Arnold, not necessarily a freaky athlete like Quinyon Mitchell is. Ran a 4.5 40. Mitchell was in the 4.3s, but
he's
elite
a
producer.
He's a Detroit Lion.
He's a guy that he's a great football player, which is something that you can say about pretty much every Brad Holmes draft pick in his tenure. He doesn't really care about the combine numbers you put up necessarily. It's can you play football? Can you play football well?
Yep.
And Terrion Arnold checks that box pretty clearly.
I got Terrion sticky in man coverage. He's an OKGR kind of guy. Ends up with the Lions. Of course he does, because my type of guy is a Detroit Lion. Not physical entirely at the line, but he's super physical at the catch point. Good recovery speed, even with that slower 40 time. Great ball instincts and production. Not afraid to get into the run game action. I think that's what really makes him a Detroit Lion. The times that I saw him explode into the backfield and make a tackle on a ball, look at him taking the microphone and speaking to the crowd. That's
awesome.
He is a sure tackler when he's not in the open field, because not a lot of corners are, but when he's coming downhill to make a tackle in the run game, he's a great cornerback at doing that. And I think that's what separates him to me from guys like DeJean, guys like Wiggins and McKinstry. And that's why Detroit wanted him. I am thrilled.
And to get him at 24, that's huge.
This is a guy that people thought was going to go around 16, 15.
He was mocked as high as
13 to the Raiders.
13 or 12.
Yeah.
That's
and
a huge get for Detroit.
And he gets past Philadelphia because Quinyon Mitchell fell. And you end up with him, who I bet that this guy was ranked highly on Detroit's draft board.
I would agree with that.
I mean, for me, I had him higher than Jackson Powers Johnson, so maybe my board is similar to the Lions. Who knows?
Jackson Powers Johnson's a guy I'm sure Detroit would love to get as well, but ecstatic that they can add an elite cover corner to the defensive backfield. That is you want to talk about a marriage of BPA and team need. That is about as clean as it gets right there.
I mean, I don't know what you. I mean, we saw Alabama in the Rose Bowl, and I've getting to know all their players in the process of researching that game. I fell in love with a lot of them, and then to further research them for the draft has been a lot of fun, and to end up with one is a lot of fun. And Terrion Arnold, hell of a player. Very happy to have him in Detroit, to have him stay in Detroit. He can just walk over to the facility tomorrow. But Alabama guys, Swift, Branch, Williams, it's clear Brad Holmes has a type. And I think that's okay, because Alabama is the premier program in college football. And it seems like the Lions just want to reproduce that at the NFL level, fundamental play. And for such a long time, Alabama was the standard for very athletic players playing an NFL-type defense, which is why their defenders were always going so high in the draft. And they get 2 defenders early here in Turner and Arnold. Green Bay at 25, pick is in. It looks like the Buccaneers are on the clock behind them.
And at 25 here, I think Kool-Aid McKinstry and Cooper DeJean, those are the 2 players we had mocked here. Would not surprise me if they go there. But Green Bay always tends to surprise people. So it would not surprise me if all of a sudden we see interior defensive line or someone like a Jackson Powers Johnson.
I don't
or
know
Graham
if they go
Barton.
offense. The only offensive player they've taken in the first round in the past 7 years was Jordan Love. They tend to take very athletic defensive players. Cooper DeJean fits that. Kool-Aid McKinstry, a guy that I'm going to look out for right now before Roger Goodell announces his pick. Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker out of Kentucky, I could see. Fits their mold very well, and they need a linebacker.
Picked Quay Walker in recent years.
And I had that one, but I wasn't bold enough to stick with Cooper. Jordan Morgan. That's
wow.
a surprise. So Jordan Morgan, the offensive tackle from Arizona, goes to Green Bay sooner than Graham Barton, which I cannot believe. I can't believe somebody's not coming up to snatch him. And I can't believe that he went before Barton and Tyler Guyton.
Morgan was who I had mocked to Arizona at 27.
So this is the spot for him, but I'm surprised Green Bay went for him.
Dallas has to be licking their chops right now with Tyler Guyton still sliding, Graham Barton still sliding.
Yeah, and you're going to get one of your pick of those three guys, most likely.
Buffalo almost certainly
is taking a wide receiver.
Wants wide receiver here. And they'll have essentially the choices that they probably thought they would. Maybe they thought Brian Thomas Jr. might be there, but highly likely that they have a chance to get Adonai Mitchell or Xavier Worthy.
The Buccaneers pick is already in, so they know who they wanted. Probably one of the corners, if I'm being honest.
Again, Kool-Aid, Wiggins, and DeJean all still on the board.
And for the Bucs, I had Brian Thomas, and you had Nate Wiggins. Defense has just been flying off since those 14 picks went quick. Offense. For Jordan Morgan, here's what I got on him. Quick hands, but poor placement. He tends to not really get them inside that often. They're often on the shoulders. It leads to poor reps in pass protection. He blocks well in the running game, but he's a bit slow off the ball, meeting athletic edge rushers. And if we look at my top 50 for him, he is, where is he at? OT 8. He is ahead of Tyler Guyton, who I'm a bit lower on than a lot of people. I just think Guyton's so raw. But 28, I guess, 25, that's a good spot for him. I put Morgan there. He's a good player, but the upside for me, I don't see it as much as I see it in Guyton or in Kieran Amagaji or in Kingsley Suamataia. It's just he's a safer player. But Green Bay, they have a really good offensive line, and they continue to build that.
Well, William, we're somewhat deep into this draft. Do you think it's time to discuss some of the Gregory Grinders?
We could do some of the Gregory Grinders. I want to look at, so Rasheed Walker's at left tackle for the Packers. That's a pretty easy spot to see why they take a tackle.
No more David Bakhtiari.
Yep. Elkton Jenkins and Josh Myers on the inside. Zach Tom, who they really like. They brought in Andre Dillard from Tennessee. But yeah, let's get into the Gregory Grinders.
Let's introduce the Gregory Grinders. William was crunching the tape in the weeks leading up to the draft. So, William, the floor is yours.
So these are guys, I tried to get them from a wide range of position groups that I like. I just mentioned Kieran Amagaji, so I'll start with him. He's a huge, I call him a toolsy project at offensive tackle out of Yale. 6'5", 323. I don't think he's going to go in the first round, so I'll share my notes on him. He's extremely powerful and anchors with good feet. The hand placement technique needs work, and he did play there at Yale with a lower level of competition, but he was physically dominant, and you could tell almost immediately. I have him at 38 on my big board, a lot higher than a lot of other people. Certainly somebody like Suamataia, who is seen as the safer of that kind of project offensive tackle that has the body type to stick there. Moving on, I got Xavier Legette out of South Carolina, a big body ex-receiver. He's had some personal issues over the past few years, so he was a fifth year this year and really broke out for South Carolina. Very athletic, and a lot of people were wondering, why wasn't he producing earlier? Like I mentioned, those personal problems kind of held him back. And on him, I also don't think he'll go in the first round, so I'll talk a bit about him. Some of these guys I would take in the first round, but they just won't go. I don't think. He's got some issues with separation, does Legette, but the speed is there. He's physical, and he plays big. You see guys with a big frame like he does maybe not play physical all the time, but he plays to his size. Excuse me. Takes a bit to get to his top speed, but he moves once he gets up there. Next up, Cooper Beebe.
Oh, yeah. I know you're excited to talk about him.
Cooper Beebe is probably, besides, well, I love Rome Odunze. I love Marshawn Nealon, who I'll talk about. I mean, these are my grinders for a reason. But Cooper Beebe is a bowling ball at offensive guard. But he doesn't play like that. I mean, he's not Larry Allen, but that's the closest thing that I can think of as just a huge mountain of a man, round. Beebe, though, that 9.27 RAS, that means he's super athletic at offensive guard. Everybody that's still listening right now, look up Cooper Beebe's highlight reel. He is a monster in the run game. He destroys smaller players. He just blows them into the stratosphere. He can get overmatched in pass protection against quickness, but that's why he's playing guard. He's there for the run game. And he holds his own against big interior pass rushers in pass protection, but the quickness gets to him. I have him, let me check. Definitely higher than a lot of people. I'm in love with him. 36 on my big board. I lied before. Amagaji's 39. Leggett at 40. Jaden Hicks, who I'm going to talk about, 41. Nealand at 29. Fisk at 30. So these guys all kind of clocking in towards the end of the first round for me. Marshawn Nealon up next. Western Michigan. He's relentless. And he might go in the first round, so I'll save a bit on him later. I have him mocked in the first round. 6'3", 267. He's got size, motor, speed. Braden Fisk, similar. He is not the most physical defensive tackle, but at defensive tackle to have the kind of speed he does, you see that 9.97 RAS, relative athletic score. That means he is one of the best testing defensive tackles of all time for the NFL draft. Huge burst for Fisk. I have him going to the Ravens. And then last, Jaden Hicks, a safety for Wazoo. He won't go in the first round just because of his position. But he gets up there in the run game. He is looking to embarrass you. He wants to flat out kill you on the field. He's a big safety, but he's still so athletic, and another guy with that relentless motor that you look for from a big-time football player. That wraps it up. We'll see Nealon and Fisk maybe later, but now for the Buccaneers selection at 26.
And there goes Barton.
They flew up to the board, and they wanted Barton. I mean, he falls all the way to 26, which is not what I thought. And he's a guy that I also fell in love with as the draft went on. He's a guy that other analysts out there will say he kind of snuck up on you. You're like, this guy's pretty good, and then you keep comparing to other players, and he keeps sneaking up. And he ends up, I believe, at number 13 on my board as OT5, though, which is just, speaks to the depth of this offensive line class. He's physical, powerful, agile in a bunch of his reps, and he can play every position on the offensive line. He played left tackle in a pinch, or right tackle in a pinch. Left tackle started there in college, played guard and center. He can excel anywhere on the five positions of the offensive line. He'll get knocked down somewhat. That's my one concern about him. The pads get a little too high, but he was a lacrosse player. He's one of those the cross-sport athletes I will always bet on. The guys that played multiple sports
at
just
a high
have
level.
a different feel for football because you're I've heard other people talk about this. You're not robotic. You're not trained from such an early age to just be boxed into this specific thing. That's why I think you always see in the top picks of the NFL draft players that maybe are new to positions, but they're so athletically gifted that they're capable.
Well, we touched on earlier, Joe Alt's a prime example of that. I mean, somebody that didn't really play football until he was in high school, didn't play left tackle until 2 or 3 years ago, and now is a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Some people saying there's concerns they couldn't flip him over to right tackle. I think he'll be A-okay. He's a 6'9" mountain of a man that moves like nobody his size. Cardinals turned their pick in real quick.
Darius Robinson does go in the first round. Detroit native edge rusher out of Missouri. I was about to say that things were holding pretty steady in terms of guys that we had in the first round, but maybe not where we slotted them. Robinson does go in the first round.
And
he was one of the 13 that are here in Detroit. Of course, it's his hometown.
He's the first one that I did not have in my first-round mock draft.
Besides the quarterbacks.
Besides the quarterbacks
And
of
it's the
Penix
same with
and
me.
Nix.
Yeah, so we were pretty good up to that point, and now you see the real draft order. Got that updated real quick. Buffalo now at 28. I assume that they'll have their pick ready immediately as well, taking a wide receiver.
Now, if it isn't wide receiver, well, I guess first let's touch on the receivers available.
Well, let me go through Robinson real quick, and then we'll move on to the Bills pick. So you can see here, this is how the draft has gone so far. I am not exactly high on Darius Robinson. He's my edge 6 behind Marshawn Nealon, and that's a 14-spot difference. Darius Robinson at 43 on my big board, the last edge listed. And I have a few reasons for this. I mean, for a long time he was mocked to Detroit. He's big. He's a big guy. He's sometimes quick off the line, and he's strong and violent against the run. But I think he's a lesser version of guys like Dallas Turner and Jared Verse. He doesn't have a large selection of pass rush moves, and he doesn't seem to be able to use his size that's effective in the run game against the pass. He was a fast riser with a good Senior Bowl week, and Arizona takes him here at 27, which for a long time I think we had them thinking edge rusher. You had them taking Jordan Morgan. I had them taking Chop Robinson, who went off the board at 21 to Miami. An edge was a need for the Cardinals. They have a lot of needs, but I think they had a very successful first season. Who's their coach? I keep forgetting a lot of these new coaches. Jonathan Gannon, former Eagles defensive coordinator. But I want to take a look. I think C.J. Stroud talked about Arizona next year, this upcoming year, really taking a leap on defense. They bring in Bilal Nichols from Las Vegas. They have Zaven Collins, Kazir White, Chris Barnes, Dennis Gardeck, who's like an undrafted guy from 2018 who's just kept carving his rollout in the NFL. Brought in Sean Murphy-Bunting. They still have Budda Baker. Jalen Thompson's a good young safety. And it's kind of a no-name defense, but they're trending up. And to add Darius Robinson to this, I get the pick. I get the reason why. I'm not exactly high on him, but they have a lot of more athletic, pass-rushy guys. Robinson's a guy that'll solidify the edge, and it looks like the Kansas City Chiefs just traded up to 28 with Buffalo, so that means Buffalo was okay with how many wide receivers are left on the board, and then moved back to 32.
Or clearly was not in love with any of the receivers
Yeah.
on the board. Is this Xavier worthy here? I know the easy speed comparison is there.
I have them taking Patrick Paul,
Now,
and they jump ahead of
I
Dallas.
was just going to say, jumping ahead of Dallas, is this offensive line?
I think it will be.
I have them taking Suamataia. You have them taking Patrick Paul at tackle. Tyler Guyton's still on the board. Maybe that's the pick. Jackson Powers Johnson as well. Plenty of talented offensive line prospects still available late in the first here, and the Chiefs make a big move to get to the front, in front of Dallas, making a deal with Buffalo. We'll see what the official compensation for that is. But, William, we're in lockstep here thinking this is likely
So you
offensive line if you're jumping over Dallas.
You got Guyton. You got Suamataia. I think that might be the pick here. I had Paul just because Paul was a fast riser. It could still be him. But something I heard, Suamataia, BYU, Andy Reid, BYU, offensive line, could be a fit.
Or they just take the fastest man in the world and Xavier Worthy and say, all right,
They could do that.
here's Tyreek
But
Hill
I
again.
I don't see Buffalo trading.
Remember when we had this guy that was really fast?
Yeah.
We just got another one. I don't know.
I don't see Buffalo trading with a team that wanted a wide receiver, though, because if they pick a wide receiver here, maybe somebody moves up with Dallas, and then it creates a a cycle of teams trading up and taking a wide receiver from Buffalo. Obviously, I'm inferring what Buffalo's going to do, but that would be what I think about. Now, you said, Buffalo might just not be sold on anybody at 28, and they were waiting to see how the draft played out, make their move out of the first round if Brian Thomas didn't fall to them or get to a spot where they could
That's
trade
what I
up.
believe. I just don't think Dallas was sold on Worthy.
You mean Buffalo?
Or excuse me, Buffalo. I don't think they're sold on Worthy or Adonai Mitchell. Maybe they're
Xavier
content.
Legette, Troy Franklin, Keon Coleman. They visited with every wide receiver, so it could be any of them. But
Or maybe it's a simple trade back and they just pick up a good DB or a Marshawn Nealon, somebody like that.
I don't see it. They don't have anybody. Losing Gabe Davis, losing Stephon Diggs.
I agree with you.
All the odds say they're going to take a wide receiver. We'll have to see. The pick has been in for a while, which means Dallas is
Firmly on the clock.
I think they'll have to wait, though, to see what KC does.
Well, they get alerted to what they're doing.
Yeah.
So what's your final call here with KC?
Sue Matai or Patrick Paul or Guyton, one of those three offensive tackles. I don't see them going wide receiver. I mean, I could see it, but I don't predict them to do that. And then I think that would tie you up with me if they go Sue Matai. We haven't had a correct pick since 14.
No, we started off red hot.
Yeah, Townsend jinxed us. This is
He
all
did.
Townsend's fault. Who else is wrong in here?
DeJean still hasn't gone.
Let's flash up the mock draft. Hold
So
on.
let's see what we still could get right.
That's my mock. I'm currently in the lead. They're not doing that. Brian Thomas is gone. And then, so it's Sue Matai.
So it's the end of the board, basically, for me.
So really this could flip because you could, if KC goes Sue Matai, then
and then
you
Dallas
get
gets
Guyton.
Guyton.
And then we both have Fisk and Nealon the same, and I would have to hope Worthy goes to the Bills to tie you.
Yeah.
And then we'd end in a tie. Because I think we
have
the
Fisk and Nealon
the
together.
same players in the first round, except you have Jerjon Newton and I have Patrick Paul.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. Well, we'll have to see. There could be some tiebreakers coming into play here. Here's Kellen's. And here's the real draft order. Well, with Buffalo and KC flipped.
So let's see what Kansas City does here. And William, to your prior point about
Townsend's still watching. I can't believe it. I didn't believe in you. But
to your prior point on
Thank you,
these
Townsend.
dual sport athletes, a guy like J.J. McCarthy that was a hockey standout back in high school. Robinson, a basketball star.
here we go. They bringing out Jake from State Farm.
Are you serious?
I don't like that at all. Is that who it is? I can't
I
tell.
can't tell.
No, it's not Jake
No,
from
it's
State
not.
Farm.
Oh, my God. William.
I'm looking at a TV so far away from me, and I see a Chiefs jersey, and I thought it was Jake from State Farm.
He would have been wearing his red suit. Come on.
Yeah. I had to block him on Twitter. I couldn't stand the advertising that I was getting from Jake from State Farm. Buffalo gets a end of the third round pick from KC and a couple swaps.
And you have to imagine there's a steeper price for Kansas City to do business with Buffalo, considering they are likely to meet each other in the playoffs at some point
here we
again
go.
soon.
His name's William. Or no, Justin. My bad. I can't. I got a headset on. I can't hear it. Oh, Worthy to the Chiefs at 28. You talked about it.
Wow.
I just am surprised that Buffalo traded out of that spot with the Chiefs of all teams, and the Chiefs taking a wide receiver.
This kid can fly. Was committed to
4.21.
Michigan out of high school. Some struggles with admissions into the University of Michigan. Ends up flipping to Texas, and he absolutely lit it up these last 2 years. Cannot emphasize enough how fast he is. 4.2, 140 in the NFL dash. Broke the combine record. But he's more than just a straight line speed guy. He's got some wiggle to him. He's a decent route runner. The biggest question mark is just his size. He doesn't have a big
tiny.
frame. And
I think
the question is, can he hang with bigger NFL corners?
I think to any team that doesn't have a really great quarterback, they got Marquise Brown. I didn't even see that. Oh, my goodness. The Chiefs have Marquise Brown, Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy now. They just completely restocked.
I don't know how I missed that, too.
Well, I think we're both like off of being regular Twitter users, so
That's
that
true.
might be the case. I have Xavier Worthy at number 46 on my big board. Obviously, the speed is there, but I have concerns about his ability overall as a wide receiver. My first note on him is just fast! Exclamation point. So dangerous on the deep ball. He has the ability to break tackles, but he is just so small and thin that I worry about that translating to the next level, and just think about him being a very thin and small speed threat like a Marquise Goodwin that can't do much other than burn people, which is a good player, but maybe not a first-round pick. Not a tremendous route runner, has some concentration drops, and so many of his targets at Texas were just extensions of the run game, which you could see in Kansas City, but I feel like Rashee Rice already fills that role. Maybe this is a pick that addresses the concern with Rashee Rice after that hit-and-run incident that he was involved in a few weeks ago. But if Rice is back, I see Worthy filling more of that Tyreek Hill role that was early in his career, when now he's a complete receiver, but before it was like, all right, throw the ball to Tyreek because he's the fastest player in the world.
Patrick Mahomes, as of 6 minutes ago, just tweeted out the running emoji. Wanted to throw that out there.
I mean, that's a dangerous combo. I had Worthy for a while going to Kansas City, but I just thought Buffalo would like that kind of player. I'm curious now what wide receiver Buffalo takes, and I'm very curious who Dallas takes. Trading out of 24, so it doesn't seem like if they go offensive tackle that they had Barton and Morgan in their plans if they picked at 24.
Guyton's still there, obviously. Maybe he's the pick here.
Maybe they just don't go offensive tackle.
Maybe not. Maybe it's they could go interior to J.P.J. perhaps.
Could go linebacker.
Edgerrin Cooper, somebody they visited with.
And there has not been a stunner, really, other than the quarterbacks.
No. Like we said, we've had almost all of the guys we had in the first round in so far.
There
and
you
it
go.
is Guyton.
You're even with me. Guyton, a project at offensive tackle, but I think he fits what the Cowboys do. Had some comparisons to Zach Martin, and Zach Martin's a Hall of Famer, so of course you think about taking that guy. He's 6'7", nearly 6'8", but I mean I think he's a Cowboy player.
He is.
I just had him going earlier, so I had them going with the next offensive tackle on the board. But I mean that's a heck of a move by Dallas to trade down from 24 to 29 to get the guy that they really thought that
and
they wanted.
Pick up a third-round pick in the process.
And he's a former tight end at Oklahoma, so he has a lot of room to grow. He's not as good in pass protection as others in this range, but he's so big and he's so quick for his size that it's easy to see why teams like him. He's got some work to do to create physicality in the run game. I think he's still a bit of a former tight end. But, I mean, we're seeing a Senior Bowl. He can grow into that. I just wasn't as high on him as a lot of other people. I've got him still at, where is he at? 31, so behind Jordan Morgan. And I got to update this board here with Dallas. So only 3 picks left in the first round.
And
we're here about as late as we thought we would be.
now this is where we took a couple of our stabs, William, here at 30 and 31. Braden Fisk, we both have him going to Baltimore. And then Marshawn Nealon, we both have him going to San Francisco. Two guys that were not expected to be first-round picks necessarily. We decided to plant our flag a little bit there on those guys getting into the first round. Fisk is somebody that was connected to Baltimore a lot pre-draft, and Marshawn Nealon is somebody that we just both like a lot. And maybe it's because he went to Western, I'm not sure, but
No, his tape just pops to me. We'll pull up the Gregory grinders again. Don't have a lot of info on these guys, but
Baltimore's pick went in real quick. Perhaps Cooper DeJean.
Yeah,
Feels like he could be
Cooper
a Raven.
DeJean fits there.
Kool-Aid McKinstry still on the board.
DeJean to me is not an outside corner. That's
I
the tough thing.
tend to agree.
And I'll look at Baltimore's depth chart. Cooper DeJean's getting the buzz on TV right now. Brent Urban is still on the frickin' Ravens, 2014 draft pick, still sticking around. I could see them going anywhere, really. I mean, Baltimore knows how to draft.
Baltimore's one of those teams where anyone they pick, you're like, oh my God, how'd they get this guy? This is an unreal pick.
It's one of my favorite tweets ever is about baseball, but it's, I love this trade for the Rays. Who'd they get and who'd they give up? So basically, I think what we think about the Lions and the Ravens and the best teams in the NFL at drafting and selecting players, you just have that level of confidence at a certain point, and it's like, well, who'd they pick? All right, I love it. And I could see anybody here for the Ravens, and I wouldn't doubt their process. I mean, they fell into Tyler Linderbaum 2 years ago, picked up Zay Flowers. He's a heck of a football player.
Still some corners that are falling.
Fell into Kyle Hamilton 2 years ago, too.
DeJean, Nate Wiggins, Kool-Aid McKinstry all still on the board.
And everybody remembers, like, they had to trade up from Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson got to 32. I mean,
yeah,
cleaning up.
Yeah.
Mark Andrews was great in college. Bateman might turn the corner for them at wide receiver. They're just so dangerous with the reigning NFL MVP in Lamar.
It feels like corner might be the play here. Outside of Marlon Humphrey, not a lot of depth there.
We have Fisk, which I think fits. Michael Pierce is going into year 9. And Madubuike,
he was great.
Yeah, kind of had his next level. But Pierce you can't play on 3 downs, and I think Fisk could do a little bit of developing. They did draft Travis Jones from UConn in the 3rd round 2 years ago. But we'll see. It's probably a corner here.
And
Wiggins.
It is Wiggins.
Okay. That wasn't either of the two guys we were talking about, but it is a cornerback that the Ravens take at 30, and it keeps – this has been a very chalky draft, except for Michael Penix Jr. going at 8. I would argue that Bo Nix was foreseeable at 12.
Yeah.
But Michael Penix Jr. going at 8 is the real only head-scratcher of this draft. Now at 31-32, it really doesn't matter who's picked because it's essentially the 2nd round, and you can pick anybody from this point on. And I'm going to say it. I mean, this draft, once everyone says I'm so excited it could go any which way, it tends to go the least exciting way.
Yeah.
And this has been pretty chalk, to be honest. And that's okay. I think it's still been fun anyways. I love seeing the fits for these players. It's all kind of jumbled in the way that they went, which I think that was the fun part of this draft. You knew these offensive linemen would go, but you wouldn't know where they went. And they're all stylistically different. We're up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 offensive linemen taken.
And I believe we both had 10 in our mocks.
Yeah, and the over-under I think is 10.5 or 9.5, 10.5.
I think it was 9.5
from Vegas. So we're right on that edge. Vegas always knows. And San Francisco taking a while to get this pick in. Look at the big board here. Who do we still have available? Adonai Mitchell is my highest-ranked player available. I think he fits with San Francisco, especially if the chatter about them moving on from Ayuk is true. Beyond that, it's Nealon and Fisk. We both have Nealon going to San Francisco. Zach Frazier, I think, is a fit on the interior of the offensive line for San Francisco. And then beyond that, it's anybody's guess who it could be. We both have Marshawn Nealon. I could see it being Zach Frazier. I could see it being a wide receiver. But we'll have to see as they're still we're still waiting on them to submit their pick. The last 2 picks here of the first round. It's been a fun night. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. This was something that we kind of just wanted to do. We didn't really care that there's probably not a market for it. We don't care that it's a lot of family and friends listening. That's fun, too. We appreciate you guys. We just wanted to be here. We're surprised. I mean, I was surprised that we got allowed in.
There were a lot more student media than I expected, though.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time we have been involved with the NFL at all.
Oh, absolutely.
Since we've been doing WCBN, it's been so much college football, basketball, hockey. And I might be getting that. I'm going to pull something up. Hold on. This is me as I'm searching for a new job. Hold on. I got to put this up on OBS. I don't know how this is going to fit.
It's actually, I think WCBN has kind of ruined my perception of sports media because in my years of 3 years of doing this in college, I've broadcasted 4 college football playoff games.
I guess I have to do it this way.
3 NCAA tournament games. An NFL draft.
Bear with me.
A Rose Bowl and national championship.
We have to see the vision. Oh, my goodness.
A game from Madison Square Garden.
Come on, Chris Paul. We're talking about Cheese Pizza 3 here. This doesn't even look any good. I don't care. This is me, first experience with the NFL. I'm trying to look for a job in NFL communications. Now that I got a taste of what that experience is like, I'm sort of addicted. And Chris Paul has not been back to the finals since.
Well, let's hope you get back here.
All right, back to the real draft order.
Thank you for that.
We got to get a little bit energized. Look at it. I love those NFL or the NBA quotes. Do you see the Magic Johnson one? I was so heartbroken I couldn't even tweet when the Lakers lost. What do you say? Last night I was so devastated I couldn't even tweet breaking heart emoji when the Jamal Murray shot went in at the buzzer against the Lakers.
San Francisco's pick is in.
Adam Bressler wanted the Ravens to take Cooper DeJean. I'm curious to see what Zach Linder thought about Nate Wiggins over DeJean. I thought about dropping DeJean out of the first round.
I had him out in a draft I had. Actually, wait. I don't think I have him in my mock draft. Yeah, I don't.
All right. So you got that on me, I think. That
think?
could be the tiebreaker, depending on who goes.
I don't think I have him.
I'll have to tally up the points.
Because who was the other one that I had? Oh, I had Newton.
Then who was the one I dropped out? I might have left out Jordan Morgan.
I think you did.
Yeah, I did. So you'll probably beat me on a tiebreaker unless I get Patrick Paul or who's up? No, it's over, I think. Right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I just barely edged you out.
You won on a tiebreaker.
This is the. Yeah, I mean, we both went stone cold after the first 6, which it's what happens. But for us to nail almost, well, I guess we'll see.
Almost. Well, I mean,
if
on average we get.
Hit.
Where's the first round?
Or Fisk.
You got 27 in the first round correct in 2022. Most I've ever gotten is 26, and right now we're sitting at what?
2 quarterbacks.
4, 28.
Well, depending on these last couple guys.
I don't think we'll break records.
I don't think we will either.
So the first one not on my board that went was who? Quarterbacks.
Niners have gone in here. You could hit JPJ, though, here.
The line. Oh, yeah, tomorrow. You're right.
Or just him in the first round.
Oh,
wow.
There's the stunner.
Wow.
I looked at Ricky Pearsall. I didn't get it. He's 24 years old.
Wow.
I don't.
He was a guy that I thought was going to go pretty early day 2 within the first 10 to 15 picks day 2, but I did not see him sneaking into day 1. I mean, you look at the top receivers left on the board, Adonai Mitchell, Ladd McConkey.
So he's
Ricky Pearsall.
the
Wow.
second guy not in my top 50 to go in the first round.
And we said that would happen.
I'm very surprised about Ricky Pearsall. Oh, shoot, sorry. Production's falling apart now that it's just been too long. There we go. It's updated. Ricky Pearsall's in there. University of Florida. He's very fast from what I saw. I just don't see, like, the complete NFL ability from him.
He kind of fits the 49ers, though.
There's guys that fit it better.
I thought Leggett was more of a clear Niner guy.
I thought it'd be Adonai. I think Adonai's like Ayuk. I love Adonai Mitchell. Ricky Pearsall for me, again, I'm sorry I don't have notes on him. He wasn't in my top 50. He doesn't seem to have great change of direction. From what I saw, he was a very fast riser. Leggett, I think, is here as Carolina trades up with Buffalo.
Wow.
Buffalo trades out of the first round. And so I heard that the Carolina Panthers had a deal where they told Xavier Leggett that they would draft him if he fell.
But this is just moving up one spot.
To assure it, I guess, with Buffalo
Yeah.
to make sure somebody else doesn't. It's like a very late. Actually, that's a good bit that Buffalo move up 59 spots
That is
for one spot.
I mean,
So they must really
wow.
want whoever they're getting, because you don't move up one spot to sacrifice 41 later.
Could this be Suamataya? Or I just don't. Clearly the phones were ringing for Buffalo, and somebody wanted to pick up whoever this is.
Now it might get a little weird now that Pearsall went. It's usually 30, 31, 32 that are like the most off the wall in the first round, except it was 8 this year. So updated this. Carolina now at 32 on the clock. Sneak into the first round after their first overall pick was given to the Chicago Bears. And I don't know about Bryce Young. I think they got to take a wide receiver here just to keep him. I don't know. I guess not keep him alive, because that's what a tackle would do. But they took Ike Ekwonu 2 years ago.
To me, that's what I think Suamataya.
But then
could be the
Moton's a good right tackle. He's a little older. They bring in Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis at guard, Austin Corbett at center.
They got Icky at.
Josh Nijmans, too, is a good pickup. They traded for Deontay Johnson. Jonathan Mingo was a second-round pick last year. Adam Thielen, older. I could see anything, I guess. They brought in Jadeveon Clowney and Ashawn Robinson. They're trying to be better. Dave Canales, their new head coach, was the offensive coordinator with Tampa Bay. Comes over cross-division. And this will be the last pick in the first round.
Newton, maybe?
I'm not sure.
DeJean? I feel like this is. Carolina's a team that has so many needs. You're just trying to get the best
stink.
player on the board.
They stink. This is a poor showing. This is one of our, maybe not one of our worst showings. 8, correct, is actually been pretty frequently. Yeah, this is about average for us. Maybe a bit disappointing just because it was so long. Like last year, we were kind of spoiled because we were going off in the middle. Looking at our previous drafts. Buffalo could, I don't know about where they went. That's still alive. That's not. Or no, that is. Never mind. Guyton to Dallas.
Carolina's pick obviously went in real quick. We'll see here. This is a interesting one, just to
Leggett,
move up one spot.
I mean, we still got all these Gregory grinders available. Leggett, Amagaji, Beebe, Nealon, Fisk, Hicks.
I would love for Nealon to make his way into the first tier.
That'd be a lot of fun. Anybody still here? Braswell, that was the late addition we made. Tackles are gone. Receivers are gone. McCarthy's gone. Penix, Nix. Burned through all my graphics. Here's the final pick of the first round.
And here's the final pick of the first round.
Yep.
And it is Leggett.
There it is. He is the only Gregory grinder to make it into the first round. I love him. I think Carolina's making a great pick here at 32. I'm happy that he sneaks into the first round.
And that's 6 wide receivers in the first, which is right with what we thought it would be.
I mean, I'm just surprised about Pearsall.
No, I agree. Not necessarily the 6 we thought it would be. But
allow 1 second to update, and then we'll run it down. Excuse me, run down the board. Then we gotta get home and go to bed.
Yep.
Real draft order final. Here we go. 32. Actually, quick flash to the Gregory grinders. Xavier Leggett, big body X. He's my guy. Top 50. I have him at 40. Makes his way into the first round at 32. My notes on Leggett. I got him having those issues with separate. Oh, yeah, I talked about him earlier. I said he wouldn't make the first round, and he does.
No confidence out of your boy.
Well, I thought Carolina was going to take him at 33. I'm surprised they moved up a spot. That means that maybe, like, I don't know, maybe they told Buffalo, like, hey, we'll give you 40 spots in the 5th round if you just don't take our guy.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's kind of a weird trade-up. They're a weird front office, weird ownership group. But anyways, that does it for the first round. We tie in terms of matching players to teams. You get me on the first round players. Or I guess we still
well, but those guys didn't go in the first round, so you could technically hit on a team.
yeah, Paul and Nealon and Fisk and all them. Or, well, I guess Paul and Sue and Matthias somehow going to Dallas. I don't think that'll happen. Let's wrap up. What do we got here? Let's see. Obviously, Penix and Pearsall, the 2 biggest surprises. Those are really the 2 only surprises to me.
I'm surprised we saw 6 quarterbacks. I thought we were going to see 5, and I thought it was going to be. And even if we saw 6, I thought it was going to be
somebody trade up at the end.
Somebody trading up, starting with like Green Bay area, somewhere in those last 7 picks. Someone trades back in, like a Denver or Las Vegas, or somebody trades back in. Instead, it was sticking and picking at 8, and I think the teams down the board really reaped the benefits. You look at Chicago. This was a home run of an evening in Detroit for Chicago. You get the franchise guy at Caleb Williams, number 1, and then pair him with Rome Odunze, a young, super talented receiver at 9. I know you brought in Keenan Allen, which is great for the short term, but Keenan Allen is not a long-term fix. Rome Odunze is. That's an awesome pickup. Minnesota not having to give up their extra first-round pick to move up to get J.J. McCarthy instead. They're able to just move up 1 spot to get their guy for the future in J.J. McCarthy, and then also able to pair him later with Dallas Turner, who many had ranked as the highest edge rusher on their board. That's a huge win for Minnesota. I'm going to throw Detroit in as a huge winner as well.
Oh, yeah.
being able to pick up Terrion Arnold, only giving up a third-round pick to go up and get who some had as the top cornerback in the class at 24. That's a huge win for a team that had a glaring need at corner. I think Seattle at 16, getting Byron Murphy is a huge win for them. They've got to be thrilled with their draft tonight. Philly getting Quinyon Mitchell at 22 is a big win for the Eagles.
We talked a lot about, these players would all probably go in the first round, but where would they go? To me, the coolest one's Fashanu to the Jets. I think he fills a big need for them.
I agree. I think that's
Bowers
a good fit.
Bowers to the Raiders. That's just going to be interesting to see him and Michael Mayer operate. Love Verse to the Rams. That's a lot of fun. Mims to the Bengals is very interesting. We talked about, they're a team that wants to win now, and you take a guy who you're not going to play this year probably. Brian Thomas Jr. to the Jaguars. I just want to see how that works out. You move on from Calvin Ridley.
I'm curious too.
And that's the pick that a lot of Jaguars fans wanted. Quinyon Mitchell falling all the way to 22 to the Eagles. Chop Robinson, that speed off the edge for Miami to pair with Phillips and Chubb. Graham Barton to Tampa Bay. I didn't see them having the ability to take Barton. I thought they were going to be a team that trades up to get the guy they wanted.
You had Barton going 10 spots earlier.
Yeah, they stick, and Barton goes 26. He's my 13th overall player. He slides a far way. KC with Xavier Worthy. That's going to be fun. I like the Wiggins to Baltimore pick. I think Wiggins is a good player. And then Pearsall to San Francisco. Leggett to Carolina I really like. Shook out the way it did, and there's some winners. The loser of the night are the Atlanta Falcons. I'm sorry to say, you pick at 8, and you come away with a backup quarterback.
Yeah. Who's going to be, 27 when he starts for you? We can come back to this, and I know we're on the same page. Like, I just don't understand. Like, okay, I get that you really like him, but why did you just pay Kirk Cousins $100 million to come to Atlanta? So he's a project quarterback that you start in 2 years when he's 27?
That doesn't scream a vision to me. That screams...
I just don't. It doesn't make sense.
Ian Rappaport tweeted out that Raheem Morris, or it was maybe Schefter, I don't know. They tweeted out that Raheem Morris really liked Michael Penix. And I get that. If your head coach really likes a quarterback, sure. But you just signed this guy to $100 million. And that doesn't scream of an organization that is in lockstep with each other, that has a vision for the future. And that's the problem.
I don't see it.
There's so many other needs.
I don't see it.
That's the one, like Pearsall to the 49ers, whatever, I don't care. It's pick 31 and it's a wide receiver, and it's the 49ers. They can pick offensive skill players. But Penix, that's an awful pick. And I'm going to stay up probably reading about it tonight. Immediate F for me. That's the only F. All the rest of them are fine. I don't care. Pearsall, that's a reach, but whatever. Yeah, I like next to the Broncos, maybe at 12. I don't like it as much. Maybe you think about moving back. I'd give that a C minus, but Penix is an F. He's outside of my top 50. I think he's a third-round pick, and that's bad process by the Falcons. But Lions ended up with a hell of a draft, and we're excited for next season.
Well, with that, to sign off one final time on WCBN Sports, William, it's been a fun last 3 years. Any final thoughts?
I signed off in the Frozen Four. That was my last live broadcast, but this was a great cap that we got to do this together. Yeah. I was worried that we wouldn't be able to do it one last time, but 4 hours of the NFL draft.
Hey,
we put it together, and for two kids that went to middle school and high school together that have been doing this for a long time, being able to put out a product that I think we're both pretty happy with. To do this was a lot of fun, a good, fun thing to do that I don't think either of us imagined we'd be doing maybe like 4 months ago.
Could not believe I'd be doing this if you told me this a while.
Yeah, I think we'll post some videos on the social tomorrow. We might come out because a lot of the Michigan players will be picked. We won't be live. We won't be able to give you the level of coverage we gave tonight for the second and third rounds. But this was a ton of fun. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You have anything to say?
just a big thank you to everyone that's supported us and been with us over these last couple of years. I've gotten to make a number of lifelong memories that I will never forget through WCBN Sports. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that's supported us here. And I guess for one last time, for myself, Kelin Flynn, and my good friend and partner, William Gregory, signing off, as we always do, with a good night, and go blue.